Hello, folks. It's Tuesday, meaning it's time for us to hang out again as we like to do every 2 weeks. We have a lovely, nice and warm June 24th, 2025, at least here in Germany. But I hope wherever you are on this planet that your weather is exactly as great as mine is. Anyway, as usual, my name is Todor Vladov, and I'm back with the 55th episode of Keeping It Realistic, a show that, as you know, is done with collaboration with Chaos and is pretty much exclusive and dedicated to the Chaos Campus community. And yeah, believe it or not, we are already 55 episodes in. And if you ask me, 55 is a pretty cool number. This is what we call a Schnapszahl in Germany, meaning a number where all the digits are identical. So I think this is enough of a reason for us to celebrate. And of course, if we want to celebrate an online show, what better way to do so than by inviting an awesome guest? And this is exactly what we're doing today. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me today here Nejc Kilar. Nate, hello,
Hey,
welcome to
hey,
the show.
everybody. Thank you for having me over. It's a real pleasure here, man. Been following what's been happening on Chaos Campus. Haven't been quite as active, but I'm really enjoying what's happening there with the community. Seems like a really fun, respectful, and engaging community. So, good job, Theodore, and good job everyone that's actually partaking in the community. Pretty big on communities, in case you haven't noticed.
Thank you very much. And let me tell you that everyone here is really, really happy that we're having you here with us today. A usual episode of Keeping It Realistic takes around 2 hours, and it's me just, talking and talking and talking. So, of course, it's way more interesting and exciting and engaging to have someone, especially someone like you here. But you know what? We've seen you on webinars with Tom Grimes. We've watched tutorials done by you for Chaos, but I feel that we don't know enough about you, about your creative journey, and about you as a person as well. So please tell us more about yourself.
Oh well, hey, I'm Nate. That's kind of how you pronounce it, but people have really funny ways of pronouncing it, especially if they're not Slavic speaking. Yeah, I'm Nate. I'm a creative professional. Been in the business of 3D visualization, mainly product viz, for the last I don't know how many years. I think it's like 11 or 12. Um, but that's my bread and butter. And the last couple of years, I'm also, besides doing actual commercial work, I'm also helping Chaos produce educational / marketing content over on YouTube, over on the now called Chaos Academy thing, webinars, etc., etc. So that's a little bit about who I am. I've been pretty like I haven't been in 3D since I was a teenager or anything like that. I had other interests, but yeah, once I started working in this field, it was really nice. And part of what got me working in this field was actually the fact that all these 3D communities were all very nice, accepting, and ready to share their valuable sort of knowledge. And that's kind of one of the things that really got me intrigued and got me thinking, hey, this looks like fun, and it looks, I want to be a part of this. So that was part of what played the role of me getting into this profession. Um, but yeah, I mean, I can go a little bit more deeper into the origin story if you'd like.
Yo, please do. Please do. We're really, really excited. We have many people being really happy. I see the comments. We have Amit, Gideon, Simon, Irakli, Kama, Landry, so many people watching you live and wanting to hear your story, myself included. So please tell us more. Tell us
Well,
about your person as well.
thank you for the interest. I'll try to keep it short, but I'm going to try to sprinkle in the fun bits because I think some of them are a little bit unusual. So, um, essentially, I really got into computers thanks to my mom, who at the time she was kind of like a uh, like my father wasn't involved for various reasons, and she was working two jobs so she was able to buy me a expensive computer at the time. And mind you, this is like late 90s type stuff, before the original Half-Life got released, that sort of timeline, if we have any nerds out here. um, yeah, I know about you.
Yeah.
And that really got I mean, she saw how passionate I was about computers and technology, and so she went ahead. She worked 2 jobs. She got me this computer, and so that's really kind of like, dare I say, the power of love.
Yeah.
I know people might have different experiences with their parents, but this was mine, and it changed the course of my life, because after I had my own computer, obviously games, number one thing, but the second thing was, once you get bored of playing games, especially in the pre-internet days, right, where you kind of had to buy CDs and play demos, and as a child, you don't really have that much money to be buying games. And at the time, pirating games wasn't even a thing. So, but we shouldn't talk about that. It's not people. You want people to get paid, right? So,
Yeah. But we're keeping it realistic here, or real. So, yeah.
And appreciate that, right? So, yeah, that got me into modding and got me into trying to create my own games or versions of my own games for years, right? And it was really a hobby. Nothing ultimately came out of it. I never thought of it as a career. It was just something, when you have too much time as a teenager, it's something that you do, right? And that's sort of what I did. Ultimately, at some point, this is probably going to be interesting for some people to hear, is I kind of got into esports. This was still before it got really popular, but we were paid to go to the Netherlands, go to Italy, and play in tournaments there and stuff like that. So that lasted for a couple of years.
It sounds like a dream for a lot of people, getting paid to play games.
Oh, it's fun, but I'll tell you what, it's also stressful.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine this because I took it pretty seriously. I that's the first time where I was like, oh, maybe this could be a career choice. But this was before modern esports. This was before CS:GO and League of Legends and all this kind of stuff that's popular these days. But yeah, imagine this: like, it was probably 3 to 4 hours every day, practice, strategy sessions, games, right? So
it's easy to
fun.
imagine. It's easy to imagine. I think, people say if you turn your hobby into a job, you never work a day in your life. I don't quite agree with this. I mean, the moment you don't feel you're ill or you have a headache and you still have to get up and do it, it's not a hobby anymore, because with a hobby, you just say, no, that's it. I don't want to do it. But as you say, you have to play games like those 3 or 4 hours. You're obliged to do this, and it becomes a job.
Yeah, especially if you want to be good at it, right? So that's why, because I know some people cringe when they hear the word esports and they're like, huh, how's that sporty or anything? But I respectfully would disagree, because you do need to put in the time, you need to put in the effort. Yeah. And especially when you go on these tournaments, back in the days, I mean, you were at an event for 2-3 days. Now, you didn't play the whole time. You played probably 3 hours in the whole day, because it was just like 2-3 matches at most. But just getting prepared, because you wanted to win, right? And you had sponsors and you had those types of deals, and you wanted to do better, right? And so it takes, you got to be a bit of a sporty person. That's why I always am like, yeah, I know esports kind of sounds funny to some people, but it takes dedication, just like any other sport.
Yeah, maybe they should be called e-tournaments or something like this, because sports people just, more relate to physical activity, I assume. But I mean, chess is also a sport, and it's not any more active than playing computer games, to be honest.
Well put, dude. Well put. I agree. I 100% agree. Share the same opinion. Yeah. Probably should be called a little bit differently.
Yeah, but just to quote for you, and quote by Amit from the command, saying mother's love always needed. And yeah, mother's love is just something unique. Dad's love as well, but it's a bit of a different kind. So yeah, we truly appreciate your mom doing this, because we now also all profit from this.
Oh, that's a very kind thing to say. Thank you to the both of you. But yeah, it's just, I always like mentioning this, because I'm big on selfless acts, and I'm big on communities. And this part of my life kind of ties into that, because I know she worked hard. She didn't have to. She could have just bought me a old rinky-dinky computer, play some video games, but she went out and bought me, at the time, it had like a Pentium processor, Voodoo graphics cards, or 3D accelerators, they were called at the time.
Yes, they were.
So it was like, you were kind of, she went above and beyond, because she knew how happy it made me. And it's something to appreciate, I think, and worth calling out. Yeah, so I definitely agree. Mother's love, something special. But I do know some people, listen, people are in different situations. Love can be expressed in different ways. So other people's story doesn't have to be the same for them
Sure.
to call it, mother's love story type thing. So just want to mention that, right? It comes in various forms for various different people. So just really want to be calling that out, I guess, if I may.
But yeah, it's a kind of a selfless and altruistic act, and kind of explains why you later are also eager to help others or support others and do stuff for the communities, because it's pretty much the same. But you saw it as a young boy, and you kind of liked it and valued it, and so decided to pay it forward, so to speak, the way I understand it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It probably rubs off on you if you're exposed to that as a child, right? So it's yeah, she's the type of lady that you gotta beat with a stick, because otherwise she will grind herself to death to help you.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess it kind of rubs off on people, because I'm very big on, like I said, I'm very big on communities. It's we're making money as creative professionals, right?
Yeah.
And some of us more money, some of us less money. But ultimately, not everything's about money. And it's about trying to help people, working with people, trying to see other people succeed. That type of stuff is like, sure, you need money, and it's good to have money. And I like money. But it's not everything, right? You do want to have that component where you wake up and you think about other things as well. And you're like, okay, how can I pay it forward, like you mentioned, or just helping your clients, just really working with them on trying to achieve their goals, right? I mean, as a creative professional, that's what I kind of sort of pride myself on. It's fun work that I do. I get paid, which is important, and also I like to feel like I'm helping somebody. So it's like it. I personally feel like it's nice to have multiple motivational points, I guess, when
Sure.
living your life, not just working on projects, I guess.
They're not exclusive in any way. In the end, I mean, that you work and you want to get paid for this is very normal, and it makes a lot of sense. But of course, it's great if you also really have the passion to know, yeah, I have a client, I want to help them, I want to
Mm-hmm.
really, my image is to help them sell their idea or their apartments or whatever, to just be a support for their task or whatever what they're doing. So yeah, they're not exclusive, they're actually great. If there is more of those, the more motivations you have, the better, actually, because if one motivation doesn't quite work in the moment, let's say the project is not that well paid, but let's say you still want to help, or next one will be paid but this one isn't, then the money is not a motivator, but it's like you wanting to help, wanting to be a good professional and all of this. So absolutely agree with you here.
Dude, you nailed it. That's exactly how I like to think about things, because we're all humans. It's natural to, sometimes feel less motivated about this certain thing you're doing or whatever case. And then you have these other motivations. So sometimes you're a little bit more motivated about maybe the money that you're getting.
So,
It's not cool to be exclusively motivated by that, in my opinion, right? But sometimes, that kind of helps. Maybe
yeah.
you have a rough day and you think of like, oh, I'm making good money with this. Cool, of course, right? Other times, you feel more like, you know what, the money could be better, but I'm really liking what we're doing with this client. They believe in their product. I want to help them, right? And so maybe that's the main motivator, and you're just like, hey, listen, you know, the
Absolutely agree. We've even talked about the so-called money projects in this show. Sometimes the project won't end up looking great, won't be a part of my portfolio, but it puts food on the table. So this is my motivator in this case. Other times it could be the exposure that you get because it's like a big namey client, or maybe it's just something which would look really amazing in your portfolio. So yeah, that could be different motivators. Of course, it's best when it's all of them. Like it's a well-paid project. You help. It will look great in your portfolio and all of this. But of course, you can't always have everything, right? So yeah, absolutely, absolutely understand. By the way, we've got more and more people joining, and it seems like we also have quite a few nerds here among us. Amit saying he started with Contra on TV, same by the way. After
nice.
that, Wolfenstein, and yeah, classic games, man, still can play them with the same enthusiasm. Yes, because back then the games were made from gamers for gamers, and this is why the gameplay has been a major component of this. Not like nowadays, we have politics, you have money, you have all of those things implemented in a game, and this is why they're not as great as they used to be. And yeah, you can still play Quake or Doom or whatever games that came out like 30 years ago or more, and they're still great because once again they were made by people who loved games for other people who wanted to appreciate them. So yeah, also we have Danushka here playing Dota, World of Warcraft. So yeah,
Nice.
seems like despite being so busy, 3D artists still have some time for hobbies.
That's important.
Yeah, we'll talk about this in the Q&A section. By the way, folks, we will have a Q&A phase or section in the end. We're not here on Zoom. We don't have this separate Q&A section where you can just put your questions and they will be kept until someone reads them. But what we can do is have in the end of the show just a Q&A moment where you can just ask your questions, and yeah, you can ask everything you want. Let's see what Nejc wants to answer in the end. But yeah, so if you have a question, maybe keep it for the end of the show. And now, Nejc, do you think we can continue, or do you have some interesting other stories to share with us? Because otherwise I would have asked you next if you are superstitious.
If I'm superstitious.
Yeah, are you?
Well, um, uh, superstitious in what ways?
I mean, if you're superstitious because, you know, a project that you're very well acquainted with, Corona, came
Mhm.
out on Friday the 13th.
Ah.
And so I wanted to know, how do you feel about this? I think Tom was having a ton of fun with his release. Maybe I can share my screen and we can take a look at this together.
Let's see what I can say here. I gotta be wise with my words, but I'm just gonna put it like this, behind the scenes a little bit.
Yeah, please.
We decided relatively early on we want to. Well, I think Tom and the PM, sorry, the marketing team decided Friday the 13th kind of aligns with the sort of when we want to release. So let's just lock it in, right? But then as we got closer to the release, I got sick.
Oh,
We had some, just flu type stuff, but I was out for a week and a half and whatever. Tom had some, I think, issues with of his own, and it was just like we were starting to feel the sort of the curse of the Friday of 13th, where we was like, oh gosh, we got so much content to do. And everyone's kind of like busy or kind of sick or whatever. So it was a little bit funny. Yeah. Oh, and we had a bunch of um, technical difficulties with some of the hardware to render out some of the animations that we typically do for the tutorials. So it was just like, yeah, Friday the 13th, it was a good date to pick.
so yeah, you gave yourself a challenge, and yeah. It turned out okay, but this is nice to know. So in future, if somebody wants to release the 13th version of their software on Friday the 13th, they may expect some unexpected, unforeseen consequences out of this, right?
Well, it could obviously could have been worse. We all know Friday the 13th is yeah, we've all seen the movies. It's pretty grim and pretty gory, but no, this wasn't that grim or that gory by any means. But it was, dare I say, I'll be honest here, it was probably the most stressful release we've had in a
Okay.
while. I'll just say that, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a good release, in my opinion. It's just, just the events following into each other, and just I think everyone knows what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it was a good release. I mean, judging by the comments underneath the video by Tom, everybody was happy because this is not something that is always the case. You know, it's not only not talking about chaos, but like every company, especially when they have a project, even Autodesk with 3ds Max and stuff like this, sometimes there is a new version and it's released, and people are like, "Nah, it's not enough." I think we had a bit of a case like this with Corona 11, where people were like, yeah, I wish for more, and what do we need a tool material for? Even though I have to say, I was also like, tool material, okay, it's good, but is it really that necessary? Until I really needed it for commercial work. And I absolutely learned to value it because I needed to make custom tiles for a bathroom. and the tune material was so amazing in this. But yeah, I only learned to value it when I needed it, so to speak. So yeah, but I think this one was really good release, and people are actually happy. What's your perception of the situation?
I think we're all pretty happy with how people feel about this release. And let me just preemptively say, if people weren't happy, we do take that into consideration. But at the same time, maybe this is a good opportunity to maybe just touch up a little bit on the inner workings. So obviously, when you've got a product, you got to figure out you're gonna do probably you got to have some sort of a yearly plan. You're probably gonna do a release around this date, right? Because you've kind of figure out all of these features are going to be ready by then. But then development is not linear. And I think a lot of our users are aware of that, but some maybe aren't quite as much, in a sense that you kind of feel like this task is going to be easy, or the developers think it's going to be, but then it turns out it's really not. And but by the time you're 3 quarters in to the development cycle, and you're like, well, we're not ready to release this, so I guess we're just going to move it to the next one, right? Because you wanna do right by the customers as well in that sense, I suppose. So just trying to communicate that planning for releases, executing releases is not quite as easy, especially now that Corona is a mature product. These things can get a little bit more complicated, but we keep tabs on the community sort of sentiment. We have sometimes we had the update 1 release, which was more like a technical release for various reasons, with just some minor things that weren't ready for the previous release, but we kind of had it lying sort of around. We finished it, and we were like, we think people are going to appreciate this. Let's release it as sort of this interim release. So we can do kind of stuff like that. But then at the same time, you don't want to have too many releases, because then just think about all the render farms and people needing to update. Bigger companies, they have IT departments that kind of coordinate that. You want to make sure everyone kind of feels as comfortable as they can, and that's sometimes just difficult to do, especially with all the planning. So sorry, I know this was a little bit off tangent, but I just wanted to maybe just give the viewers a bit of an idea that this is sometimes a little bit more complicated. And I'm not part of the product development team. I'm not part of necessarily the marketing part of the team that makes big decisions, but just trying to relay some of the things they're facing, right?
But this is very interesting, because how else can we get this glimpse behind the scenes of a process like this? We just see the final project, but it's exactly people like you who can tell us more about the process of going or achieving this phase. So it was, for me personally, it was very, very interesting to hear that. And I think people are rightfully happy, because actually some of the most requested features, as you said, you're listening to the feedback, or Chaos is listening to the feedback, and I think some of the most requested features have been implemented in this version. And maybe we can take a closer look at some of them, and maybe try to together figure out what they could be best used for, because people know this show, it's not about selling you Corona or something like this. We never do this. There are no strings attached. We just talk about something that might be useful for you, especially with Nejc being here, because once again, he's a part of the Chaos team. He is so proficient and he knows so much. So maybe we can take a look at some of these new features that got introduced with Corona 13th, and maybe discuss a bit about them. Of course, starting with the tune shading, the outline and tune materials, which I personally and many were waiting for a long time, because we have them in V-Ray, and now we have them in Corona. And without even doing reading or something, first thing I did after installing the new version was trying to go and check out the tune material. And I gotta say, at first I was a bit confused, because I was like, okay, it's a tune material, but where the hell is the contour? Where is the outline? What's the tune material without an outline? Until I figured out that there is an outline, a separate outline material. Of course, these two can be combined, and I think actually it's a very good idea to have them separated. And in the end of the day, I think this is where I probably see the most potential for creating something new. Because if you try to Google, I tried to Google toon material architecture visualization, as you see here, and these are the results Google gives me. And it's, you see, it's not a lot. It's really not much that you get here. But scrolling down, for example, to this example down here with the astronaut, I absolutely gotta say that the toon version to me is way more charismatic and way more interesting to look at than the, let's say, more realistic version. Unfortunately, we don't have a larger version of this image, but I think that there is a hell lot of potential here for people, especially maybe for some competitions and stuff, for people to come up with their own, cell shaded style or something like this. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, toon shading in general has been requested for years, but it wasn't easy to implement. From what I gathered from the development team, I think you're right. I think it opens up a whole new plethora of type of visualizations that you can create, and I think you're spot on. It allows for certain styles that we're just not quite as used to, especially in this modern era of rendering, right? So, I mean, personally, the way I see it used in a commercial application type setting is you've got those draft images where you just want to communicate the overall shape, especially when you're dealing with architects. They're kind of used to seeing the shapes, and they're not really, sometimes they don't want to see the detail, from my experience at least.
Yeah. Or
And
they get
so,
distracted by it, it's like, why is this
exactly.
red and it's not blue and stuff like this, when you just want to show the form or the light.
Yeah, like my theory is when you start doing photoreal rendering, and even if you're not like a top-notch artist in that sense, in terms of achieving total realism, there can be a bit of an uncanny valley, and then people, instead of architects and these types of professionals, they kind of get stuck on assessing the actual sort of details where they shouldn't, right? The details of the materials, because it all looks a little bit uncanny. Whereas when you present a line drawing, in a sense, or toon shaded drawing, now we clearly know, right? This is supposed to be evaluated on a whole different level. That's how I personally think of it. I could be wrong. I'm not really working in the ArcViz field the last couple of years, but that's my impression. But even beyond ArcViz, you can create a lot of interesting art this way. You can use this in product visualizations, etc., etc. And I'll say this about the toon system: like I'm just currently working on the tutorial that we hope to get out sooner rather than later. The new toon system is way more versatile than at least I initially thought it was. You can be really creative with how you approach creating your images, how you create materials, how you play with shaders, with maps, stuff like that, because you can get some really interesting effects that you probably at first glance wouldn't think of even achieving, right?
Yeah.
So just wanted to relay that. I don't know if even I answered your questions. I kind of rambled here, but yeah.
Yeah, this is what we're here for, right? So yeah, but absolutely agree. And once again, nowadays individuality is something very, very important. It's not only important for us as artists, but also for our clients, because more and more tools make it easier to create photorealism. But at some point, photorealism is not enough. You either need to be really, do great storytelling, have awesome compositions and stuff like this, or you can maybe try to find a bit of a different style. And because we talked about computer games in the beginning, there are games out there. While everybody was struggling to get more and more realistic, there were some games like Borderlands, for example, or the Telltale games, the Walking Dead series, where they deliberately decided to go for this toon optic, for this cel-shaded optic. And those games nowadays are immediately recognizable. You see just a screenshot and oh, this is Borderlands. So I think if an artist decides to go this way and be like, hey, I want to just do something toon, and this is my style from now on. It's for competitions. It's for when it's about the form, not so much about the particular material and every single edge and grout and stuff. Then I think this is a great thing to have. So yeah, this is exactly why we're talking. Just to let you know, the comments and the people in the chat are very happy. We have Mohadiz joining us, Christian, Chris, your friend Alan Udoft from Duovis, my friend as well, because we've been working together for the last 2 years probably on the same project. So yeah, but he's also Slovenian, right? Like you didn't say in the beginning where you actually come from, but it's Slovenia, right?
Yeah, Slovenia.
Do you
Yep.
know each other personally?
We do. And Alan, I'm so sorry. I noticed I have one unreplied Instagram message from you, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, he has to come to the show here to reach you. So you better answer
I'm
his
so sorry,
Instagram
dude.
note. But yeah, Alan and all of you in the chat, it's awesome that you're here. Let me read a comment by Amit and we can move on. Amit says, can Toon Shader be used as an ambient occlusion pass with the outlines getting blurred as it moves away and have some opacity for the actual Toon Shader? Just a thought. Well, this is a complex question. Maybe, I mean, in the end of the show, if you cannot answer it right now, because sometimes you need to take some time and imagine things, maybe you can promise to go back to the chat. It's available underneath the recording in the group, and maybe answer such technical questions, because it's an interesting one. Can the Toon Shader be used as an AO pass with the outlines getting blurred as it moves away?
That's a good question, but it's one of those things that I said, like the Toon system might surprise you as to what you can do with it. I haven't tried that specifically, but let me just give you a hint at something you can do. So if you plug the outline material, if you plug a distance map into the outline material to control the width of the outlines, and you make sure that the distance is being counted from the camera, for example, then guess what's going to happen? The lines that are closer to you are going to be either thicker or thinner, and the ones, you know what I mean?
This is, oh my God. I'm ashamed because I never thought about using the camera as my distance object, and I'm so ashamed because I love the distance map. I use it in almost every project, exteriors and interiors. I love it, and this is probably my favorite map. So never thinking about it is just, oh man, this is great. This is great. Okay, let's move on so that the show isn't 4 hours long, but it's so interesting and it's so great to talk to you. So I can imagine that it's going to be quite long, but nobody will be regretting this. Be sure about this. Okay, next we have this GPU accelerated animation with Vantage, which obviously is a big deal because in the version 12 we had the live link to Vantage established, but it was about stills so far. So being able to do animations directly from Max and Corona and render them in Vantage is a huge thing. For me, at least. I remember I wanted to animate a door, and it was such a struggle to export it to Vantage from Corona. So having this one is just absolutely wonderful.
Well, I think my camera just overheated, guys. It's going to be off for half a minute or so.
Your cam can overheat. Okay, let me touch mine.
Yeah, it sometimes happens. I'm surprised it happened this quickly, to be honest. But yeah, I'm sorry. I will just have to do it a blank screen for a minute. It doesn't take long to come back. My apologies to everyone.
That's okay. We're here. We hear you. Amit says, Theo, see, a new technique came from the question itself. Yeah, it definitely did. I never thought about using the camera as a distance object, and I'm very ashamed of it because I have tried out so many different things with the distance material. So yeah, I should have come to this idea. But
I mean, here's a funny thing. While we're at it, while we're being technical, right? Yeah. What I did in the past on certain projects is I had a box that was invisible but was following the camera. This was in C4D though, so it's a little bit easier to set up. But what I needed at some point was for the distance to stop counting from the camera, but get a little bit further away from it. So at that point, it was pointing to the box. The distance the distance shader was linked to the camera. To the box. Gosh. And then I animated the box to move away from the camera at a certain keyframe, right?
Yeah.
And that helped me get the effect that I wanted. So it's like there's multiple different, this is what I like about 3D. There's multiple different solutions and they all seem hacky. They're perfectly valid as long as they work and get you to where you need to go, right? So I know I explained it poorly, but I'm just trying to say that you can have the distance be on the camera, or it can be on an object that's linked to the camera, but then can have its own movement if that's something that you need. So there's like really a lot of different ways to approach doing anything in 3D, right? And fortunately, Corona, for the most part, really supports all kinds of different workflows.
This is the thing, though. In the end of the day, what counts is just creating those beautiful images or animations or whatever. It Nobody cares how you reach that point, right? So if you give the client or whoever you're showing those images to, if you give them something they like, they don't care how you achieved this. This is just the truth. So any means, I mean, any legal means, obviously, are okay as long as they make you reach your goal. At least in my book.
That's sorry, because you mentioned it. I wanna give my 5 cents on it.
Please
I
do.
think that's one of the most important things one needs to realize when you're doing creative professional work is how you get there. Unless you're working in a pipeline, doesn't matter typically. All the client needs is the end result, right? That's why they hire you typically. I think it's one of the most important realizations that I see beginner artists or beginner creative professionals struggle with, because they're like, oh, but I want to use proper techniques and whatnot. Yes, it's important to do that, but it's also, when you're dealing with the end client, it's important to deliver, and it doesn't really matter how you deliver it. If you're pixel painting stuff in, then so be it. I mean, there's better ways to do it, but
Yeah.
the client won't care. The client probably hired you to get a certain outcome, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, just wanted to give my 5 cents because I'm really
As you
pretty
said,
passionate about this topic.
it's about freelancers mostly, of course, because working in a studio mostly has to do with pipelines and certain procedures that you cannot just change to your liking most of the times. But especially freelancers and people being self-employed and so on, you can do whatever you want. Just deliver the final images on time and let them be good. Nobody cares how you did them. So yeah, let's continue with the AI. Oh, here you are once again. So yeah, I also have it's quite warm, right? Do you also have around 30 degrees or something?
Yeah, I've been rendering animations for the tutorial, so it's a
Oh,
little bit hotter
on
than
the side.
usual.
Oh yeah, this explains everything. Yeah, I have a ventilator, I have a fan under my table as well,
Smart
because
man. I'm not there
otherwise,
yet in my
yeah.
cognitive abilities.
Yeah, okay. The AI enhanced images, you did a tutorial on this yesterday. It's a very cool tutorial, barely 5 minutes long, but it shows how to use this AI pass. And I think it's also a great idea that it is combined with the cloud, because the way I see it, it's great for this, work in progress phases where you want to share something with a client, and they will be like, ooh, why are those people looking that ugly, why are not realistic? And then you can quickly do it, and through the cloud you can quickly also share it with the client, or you can invite them over to give their feedback. And I think this is a great thing when it comes to the let's say visual enhancement of greenery. I think that this is a very, how should I put it, subtle effect so far. But as far as I understand, the AI enhancer is something that you or the team is working on the side, and this is something which, when it gets improved, we don't need a new version, as you said. It just, we just get the newest update with the cloud, more or less, right?
For the most part, at the moment, yes. I obviously can't disclose what's going to happen in the future. Not that I even know, to be honest, at this stage. It's a different. I think Tom mentioned it in one of the forum posts. It's a different team handling the AI
Yeah.
aspects, and so we're just kind of in some ways piggybacking on what they develop, right? But yeah, I mean, personally, I would wish there was a local version, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah.
Just to give you the ability to choose. But I agree with you; it's a nice solution. I think from what I've been able to use it, it does a great job with people. A bit less so with children, if I may be honest.
Of course, please be.
And it's the cool thing is you can use your computer and everything's going to get processed on the cloud, right? So I know people want the local version, and I think the developers are aware of that. But at the moment, it's on the cloud, and it does have its pros. because you can just throw it on the cloud and not worry about stuff. And if the AI model gets updated, you don't have to download anything.
Yeah.
Everything's done on the cloud. You just reap the benefits essentially. So again, pros and cons. Like I said, personally, I always prefer to do things locally as much as possible. But also at the same time, we have people working on laptops, right? Creating renders on laptops.
Yeah.
Why would you want to necessarily process this stuff locally, especially if you don't have probably a powerful GPU or whatever?
Yeah.
It's done on the cloud, so it definitely has its positives, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I mean, Amit says it has been observed that the new AI enhancement works a little more accurately with foreground stuff and not that with the background. So it is because this is the first release and it will improve with the next releases. Yeah, most likely, all right.
I mean, I've noticed the team is pretty active. That's all I'm gonna say. So
Yeah.
I think there's improvements are to be expected. I would be surprised if they're not. But like I said, can't really say much on that topic other than that.
Yeah, we get improvements on everything, on every aspect of Chaos family project. So I'm sure the AI enhancer will also get improved with time. But for now, I think even if some of us already may have pipelines with some other AI tools, being it Stable Diffusion, Magnific, or whatever, I think we still can very much enjoy this. At least for the people that we have, that we don't have those ugly 3D people. They're not ugly. Actually, we have pretty good models in the Cosmos library. But in the end of the day, there's still, those scans are always going to be lifeless. No matter how many polygons they have, they still don't have a real hair or light in their eyes. So being able to really pretty quickly enhance them without going to some further tools is a great addition in my book. Firefly removal, awesome stuff. I really love it. There is not enough talk about it, but as somebody who does close-ups a lot, and I like shiny stuff as well, fireflies are not something denoisers will help you with. So you need something like this firefly removal very much, because otherwise I have struggled so much in the past with an otherwise wonderful noise-free looking close-up, and then there are fireflies that I cannot just get rid of. So this is, to me personally, a huge deal, and I very much appreciate it. Scatter clusters, I mean, obviously very needed feature, especially if you have something like landscape design where plants are usually planted as a group. Having something like this is essential, but also for leaves and whatnot. So yeah, I think this is great.
And
The
it
rainbow
was
effect,
often
yeah,
it was often requested.
yeah,
And so the dev team, I think, really did well on with this. They listened and they've been working on it for a while, if I'm not mistaken. So it wasn't quite, just like I'm a program it in the afternoon and be done with it type of thing. Yeah, but just wanted to mention, like, your feature requests, your feedback is valuable, even though sometimes it takes time, right? It is valuable. I know people in the dev team that really do care, but things take time, right? And I think this feature it gives a whole new sort of personality to the scatter system.
yeah,
Because you can do things a lot more easier now in a lot more controlled manner. So
yeah.
just
You can use it even for people. If you want to scatter a group of, let's say, standing people and people who are sitting around or something like this, let's say you have a bird view of an exterior or something like this, and then you have, let's say, a group of people standing together, and you have different assets there that you put together as a cluster, and then there is, let's say, a meadow on the side where people can sit down, and then you have the sitting people on the meadow also as another cluster. So yeah, I think you can use it for many things. And this one, I mean, this one is obviously first time someone sees this is like, yeah, okay, realistic bubbles is great, but do I really visualize so many bubbles? But I think especially because you said you come from project design, when it comes to lens coatings, like those ski or snowboard goggles, they often have this coating on the lens, which make it have this rainbow effect. And if you're, let's say, somebody who uses Corona for project design and stuff like this, I think you would love having this, or for cars or something. Like,
dude, it's like when they first mentioned this is gonna get into 13, I was like, wow, this is one of my favorite features easily, because once you see this effect in the real world, you'll see that it's really quite often. Now, bubbles are just one example. And you mentioned product viz. You can use it there for like for automotive car headlights. Like
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've noticed headlights have this thin film effect to them, right? But then you've got even like glass that you clean in the dishwasher sometimes. And I think that's not necessarily a good thing. There might be some detergent left over or whatever. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be smart about it because I don't know much, but you can see it there as well. Now, most people creating visualizations probably won't worry about those kinds of effects, but there's people who will. And this is going to be really useful to them, even in ArcViz. Even certain types of window glazings have this type of stuff. So
Yeah. When you need to be precise.
it's I think it's something that everyone can appreciate.
Yeah, talking about appreciation, Cantana here says, appreciate the firefly remover. I love rendering caustics where you get the most fireflies. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's true. And yeah, firefly remover is a big deal. It should be one of the first points, actually, at least in my book. But once again, it's great.
It's the first tutorial I started working on for 13 because I thought it was we're probably going to want to lead with that one because I personally thought it was really big.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, people are rightfully happy. Of course, we have also those Cosmos set variations, which is great. I mean, I remember in the past buying 3D models like 3D people, and they come in like 5 different clothing styles, and then I have to import all 5 models to see which one fits my scene the best and remove the other 4 versions of that one. And now this is gone, and a very convenient way of using this. So yeah, it's definitely a wonderful version. And let me ask you, what do you wish for the upcoming Corona version of Corona 14, for example? But I mean, there is already a plan for this, but if it's your personal wish.
Personal wish. That's such a good question. Now I know some of the things that are planned, so, but I can't obviously talk about them.
Yeah. But what would you like to see being a part of Corona? For me personally, this is Corona, the live link to Vantage, and Corona, supporting, or Vantage supporting more of the Corona materials directly as it does with V-Ray. I would love for this to be like, obviously, if at some point Vantage is just interactive render for Corona, more or less, this would be great. Mikkel here says GPU-based Corona. I'm not sure if this is possible because Corona's code is just GPU-based, right?
Guys,
but yeah, I mean, Corona with Vantage Live Link and most or all materials supported will be GPU Corona in the end of the day, right?
I mean, listen, it's a bit different than that. It's obviously Vantage has its own render engine, right? And it's not Corona. That's why it's GPU based and why it's fast, and why there's a bit of a not the same quality necessarily, right? But again, we talked about this earlier, so it kind of depends on what you need on a given project. If you need a quick output, and you can do with a bit less quality and a little bit less control, maybe.
Not every client wants absolute photorealism. This is just the truth, and yeah, I think it's Vantage. I mean, we have this project, we have this scene in the group that I made and shared with everyone. It's done with only Corona Cosmos materials and assets, meaning that everyone can just download the scene as it is. And I mean, for it, I made it in first for Corona and rendered everything out with Corona, and then I made a new version. This is of course something which is now pretty inconvenient. This is why Amit asks, how are the material compatibilities with Corona and Vantage going on? Are there developments on it? I'm sure they are, right?
Yes, of course. Live link is and Vantage support is pretty important.
Yeah, this is just amazing, because in the end of the day, I mean, I don't know if we can maybe quickly find this post. By the way, take a look at our new very, very awesome group cover image. We always take a moment to appreciate that, so let's do this today as well. But if we go here to the fixed post, I think we can quickly find this. And where is it? Here it is. And I think I made some if we follow the link where you can download there are also renders, and if you go to the renders, there is a comparison between Corona and Vantage. And honestly, if we take a look at this, to the left you see the Corona Raw render, to the right you see the Vantage Live Link with rework materials. So I needed to spend some time to rework my Corona materials for them to work out. But if you directly compare some of the shots, especially a shot like this one or this one, for example, this would be like the Vantage version would be absolutely sufficient for most of my clients. And I have pretentious ones as well. It's just that it's very, very good quality. And as you can see, it's quite similar. What didn't work, of course, and it's a big pity, is the UV randomizer, which is something which is very, very needed, obviously. But other than that, I think that lots of clients will be happy with the Vantage quality as it currently is. And we can imagine that Vantage is going to advance and be more and more capable in future, and this compatibility between Corona and Vantage will be even better as well.
So listen, I'll be honest with you. When the whole Vantage to Corona Live Link was introduced, or when the team was talking about doing this stuff, I was like, I wasn't really paying that much attention, wasn't really providing a lot of feedback, because I was like, I don't know, it's not something that I personally would use for my projects, and I'm not sure how much the community would want this. And to be honest, I guess people should be happy. I wasn't the decision maker on that one. Is people really find this important and they really like it. Now, to your point, and to what kind of to touch up on what we discussed earlier, the client doesn't care if we're talking about doing work for the end client, is they don't care if it's Corona, if it's V-Ray, if it's Vantage, if you drew the pixels by hand, they don't care, right? So it's about what gives you the creative freedom, what gives you the quality that you want, that the client expects, et cetera, et cetera. And now, what I think this live link does, and where I underestimated it personally at the beginning, was it gives people a choice. So do you have a project that you want to work on in Corona because you're familiar with Corona, but you want to render it out in Vantage because it doesn't, you can do away with the, with the quality sort of drawbacks that Vantage naturally comes with compared to something like an offline render as Corona and V-Ray. Well, then you can work in Corona, live link it, and render it there, right?
Yeah.
You can maybe just start a project from scratch in Vantage. You can. Point is, it gives people the ability to have different workflows at their disposal. Now, personally, I haven't used LiveLink for anything else but quick internal previews, not even client previews. But it's because of the type of jobs that I do and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean you can't do wonderful stuff with Vantage. I mean, Theodore, you posted a couple of weeks ago some really amazing renders with Vantage, and people like you, there are certain situations where you won't even notice a difference, right? And there are even certain situations where, you need the Corona quality and you're willing to wait a little bit longer because it gives you the versatile workflow and the quality. But sometimes the speed of Vantage, and even though the GI doesn't have that quality and everything's a little bit more denoised, it just gives you more creative freedom to fly around and try different things maybe. So point is, now you can kind of choose, right? Yeah. And so I think that's what the development team was aiming for. And to give them credit, like, I think they did well. It's very well accepted in the community. People are making awesome stuffs in Corona, transferring it to Vantage or just purely in Vantage, like your renders here, right? Just amazing stuff. And it's really cool that you just have another tool at your disposal, basically.
That's it. That's what I mean, what I did in the end of the previous show is I showed everyone a bit of a creative journey or a bit of a behind the scenes of creating a project out of nothing, more or less, and exploring ideas. And without Vantage, I would have never, rendered all of this, especially, with the depth of field and all the noise that I would have had otherwise if I would have preferred quick renders in Corona. So I would have never rendered like 60 images or something like this. But in Vantage, what you see here are just like viewport snapshots. That's everything that we have, and they already look very, very nice, right? And as you said, nobody will care about this because people cared what about what I'm showing them, what I'm exploring, rather than if everything is like perfectly photorealistic. So yeah, this is great. But the thing is, let's make a smooth transition to the next topic. The thing is, with Corona, we now also have a new method of being quicker and having shorter render times that we are used to, and this is thanks to the awesome, screw that, of course, it's Facebook does what it wants to, but will still be quick and find it. And it's thanks to the awesome Vieco. Because Vieco, for those of you who haven't seen this, especially Corona users, I hope there are none, but still, let's mention this. Vieco on his Rendoram channel, which by the way is an amazing channel with lots of wonderful tips and tricks and knowledge. Definitely check it out if you don't know it. So yeah, Vieco shared a method of speeding up render times in Corona, making them 5 to 15% faster, which a method, by the way, which can be also implemented in V-Ray. So, instead of going the casual way or the usual way of setting a noise limit of 3 or 4% for final images and then using the default Corona high quality denoiser, Vieco's method uses the Intel CPU GPU AI instead, and he sets a time limit, let's say 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, he sees how things are. If the image is perfect, then it's great. If the image is not quite noise free or there are some artifacts, he would just increase the render times. But obviously, the final quality is just impressive, but it's reached within a fraction of a time. And I have an example here. I think it was an example by Danushka. Just take a look at this. So to the left, you see a 6-hour Corona render. To the right, you see the same image rendered for 15 minutes using the Vieco method. And I think this should be called like this. He absolutely deserves it, because just take a look at this. And honestly, for the untrained eye, these are the same image. For the trained eye, these are pretty much the same image, maybe with a small difference on the bump if you compare here the couch and here, but this is really the only difference I found, and this is absolutely not worth rendering for 5 hours and 45 minutes more. So yeah, this is absolute shout out to Vieco. What do you say, Nate? You said you know him, and yeah, what do you think about this?
Yeah, fun story. At some point, Vieco's machine died, his workstation, and he bought one from me because I had one spare. So we kind of, from that point forward, we started communicating a little bit more regularly. But yeah, he showed me this method before he actually published the YouTube video, and he did a great job. And I think this is the power of the community, because this helps a lot of people. And I will say this: it's good for the environment as well, which I know everyone has different opinions, but 6 hours versus 15 minutes is, you saved some electricity, save the planet a little bit. So it's a cool method. But one thing that I do want to say is, are you relying on the AI denoiser to basically fill in the sort of the gaps in the image where the noise is at? Which there might be situations where it's not gonna do a terrific job. But to Vieco's credit, this method it tends to work more often than it doesn't in most situations. For animations, you probably still need to render it for longer because it doesn't have any temporal consistency or anything like that. But again, to our earlier point, if you can get away with it, why not? And there's another thing that I would like to mention, and I've seen this, I've noticed this myself. I like to use the AI denoiser because it softens the image up in a more, I'm gonna say photographic way, but you can think of it as any, like, just think of me as in the Lululand, but I find it a bit more photographic when things are a little bit softer, and just regular blur and sharp and stuff like that doesn't really do the same thing for me. This really kind of softens up the anti-aliasing in the image for me, and I like it. And I've noticed some of the more experienced users over on the Corona forums, which, by the way, if you're not paying attention to, there's a lot of awesome tips and tricks about Corona if you go into forums, is uh, people kind of tend to share the same opinion. It softens the image up just the right amount. But now with that, it might also happen that there's going to be some detail that's not just going to look the way that you want to sometimes. Bump might also be a bit more, well, a bit different. But again, it kind of depends on what you're working on. And yeah, I will say this. I feel like I think this method works a lot more often than when it doesn't work. So
Yeah.
it's perfectly valid and it produces great results. I would agree.
Yeah, and I mean, it's when it can save us time, then we can use it. If it doesn't work, then we still have, Corona's full render times, which aren't always 6 hour long. By the way, I mean, I've had exteriors with a lot of stuff on them render in 1.5 hours or stuff like this. So let's not make it look like every Corona render is at least 10 hours long or something like this. This
Yeah.
is not the case, but sometimes they tend to be long, especially if you have, let's say, depth of field and especially strong depth of field. And this is where having something like this could save you a lot of time. So yeah, once again, shout out to Vieco. And what I learned from this is that we need to also kind of stay awake, and also from time to time at least question old practices, because obviously doing a work on a day-to-day basis, you just want to rely on a method that works. But when you have time to experiment around, especially with AI evolving that much, I think it's a great thing to test out some new solutions like Vieco did here. He tried out this and that and figured out, wait, take a look at this. This saves me so much time. And we have here another example with Danushka Amit in the comments saying, I followed the method recently and it really saved me times. And the client didn't notice any difference in the noise or something. So yeah, I mean, if you can make it quicker and keep the quality, definitely use this. I mean, why wouldn't you? Danushka says it's really great for initial work where getting the project ready for the final phase. Yeah, this of course too. Sometimes you need to even send a work in progress in high resolution or something like this. So yeah, this is definitely amazing. So absolute shout out to Vieco once again for finding this out first and then for sharing this with everyone for free, because he could have done a course and said, I can show you this, but behind a paywall or something like that. But no, he didn't, and this is amazing. This is what I also love and cherish so much about this community. And talking about learning, something really, really fresh that came out yesterday, there is a new course for Corona, which was actually really announced yesterday, but will start on July 24th, 2025. It's more aimed at beginners, but I wouldn't say it's only beginners that should go and watch it. I personally will enlist for sure, because if we go down here, we'll see that there are 4 sessions planned in this course. First one being the Corona Essentials, Materials, Lighting, and Cameras. This is the one on July 24th. Next session is going to be on September 25th, where you learn how to build your first interior and exterior scenes. Next session, however, is already adding live with Vantage and Chaos Anima, which I have never really used Anima. So for me, this is going to be, I'm the beginner with Anima in this case. And then the final session, which is going to take place in the end of November, is final portfolio images, art direction, and post effects. So there is a lot of knowledge here, and this knowledge you'll be getting from none other than Luis Inciarte. And as you know, he has a lot to say. He has a ton of experience. Currently, he's a creative director at Binyan. So absolutely don't miss out on this one. I'll drop you a link so that you can register, and I'll gladly also share it in the group afterwards. But yeah, this is very, very fresh. I don't know if there are limited seats. I don't think so. But yeah, make sure to join. I'll be there as well, because, in the end of every session, there is going to be a half an hour of a Q&A with Luis, and something like this you shouldn't be missing ever. Right? Do you agree, Nate?
Oh yeah.
Do you know him
Bingo.
personally? Sure, right?
No, we haven't talked yet. Nope.
You haven't? Well, he's awesome. He's really, I mean, I've already hung out with him 2 times, and yeah, he's a very creative person, very interesting to talk to. So yeah, absolutely don't miss this one. Of course, very knowledgeable with a lot of expertise when it comes to visualization and Corona specifically. Okay, Nate, what would you say if we do some reviewing now?
Just maybe, sorry, because we talked about Vieko's method.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody go check out Vieko's YouTube channel. He's got a lot of great. I'm not paid to say this. He's just got a lot of great content, obviously.
Yeah,
One thing that I wanted to mention about that method is, please, people, do not forget to set the image filter to anything but I think it's the tent is supposed to be the correct one, but generally anything but the high quality one that's default in Corona. If you're using any of the AI denoisers, you're
yeah,
gonna get a little prompt asking, well, telling you, but just don't dismiss it. Make sure that it switches, because if it doesn't, then the AI denoiser will look a lot more splotchy in a lot of the
yeah.
situations.
To the tent, as Amit kindly reminds us, it's the tent that we need to switch to. In V-Ray, I think this automatically happens, but in Corona, we need to manually switch to tent. But Vieko explains everything
He
clearly and
does.
nicely in
He
his
does a great
video.
job.
But yeah, thanks for reminding us about this, because yeah, it's an important part. There are some things you need to do. There is also the downscaling that afterwards happens in Photoshop that he recommends. You can watch the whole video and see how it's done, but it's what I wanted to just give out here is just the main difference within Corona. And I think I already tried it myself as well, and I really managed to render a scene within a fraction of the time I initially rendered it. So yeah, it works most of the times, as you said. Okay, let's do some reviewing. Because yeah, we want to have this show be a bit like a regular episode of the show, meaning that this is like a live review show, so we have to do some reviewing. And of course, it's awesome that we're going to do this with you here, because usually it's only me, it's only one opinion, and 4 eyes see better than two, right? So we'll start off with this project by John. He doesn't write much about it. He says, "Hi, I want to share this project successes, blessings, and keep rendering." Seems like a commercial work, and it's done in Max and Corona and SketchUp, probably for the initial modeling and then transferred over to 3ds Max. So, yeah, let's take a look through the images, and then I'll gladly hear your opinion about this, dear Nate. So it's a large one, obviously. But what I personally find cool about it is that the quality is very consistent, even though it features like day shots and a bit of an evening shots, and also interiors as well. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but done really, really nicely. So, any thoughts about the good stuff? We can then talk about potential improvements, but let's first discuss the good stuff.
Dude, I really like the consistency and of the aesthetic throughout all the images. I was never quite able to nail this sort of, I want to call it clean look. This super, like, almost like you get this perfect DSLR camera, and you're really cleanly editing these photos. It has a really nice aesthetic to that. It screams modern to me, and it's kind of consistent through all the images. And I really like um the fact that it has this sort of subtle tone mapping, or not tone mapping, but color grading to it, which just kind of twists it in its own unique sort of style. Like the greens are a bit of a certain hue in the sky, while blue, I think it gives them a bit more of a greenish tint as well. I really like how all those elements add together, and I can totally see these images being plastered on a sort of a billboard somewhere downtown selling new apartments.
Also, nice image variety. It's cool that sometimes we see like the same building from straight ahead, from the right, from the left. It kind of becomes boring. Whereas here we have like different shots, different lighting scenarios, but also interior, exterior, and with the interior, like we have one bedroom shot, one living room shot, and then once again we leave the interiors and we're in the backyard or something like this, and then the balcony. So there is a lot of different aspects of this work are being shown within a few images. I think this is great quality to me.
Completely agreed. Completely agreed. And I'm personally a huge fan of the nighttime shot there. It's just subjective. I'll fully admit it, but yeah, this one, just the sort of the greenish tint of the sky, the grass, the warmth, but not fully sort of traditional warmth of the lights. Just really huge fan of this one. This is the money shot for me.
Yeah, it's the blue hour shot. It's just this warm and cold contrast, which people absolutely dig. I think this is why blue hour shots are so popular. We even have a moon here, which I think is a wonderful detail. But yeah, generally speaking, I think these lighting scenarios and also the storytelling, just take a look at this. Like, it seems like here in the front, we have a playground, right? And this is like a public area, so we expect to see some kids, but of course there is a lot going on here. So if you already have some kids as well, it will be kind of crowded there. This is why he decided to put the kids here in the front, where we have a bit more space, so a bit more room to breathe for this scene. But what I really like about this is how these kids, we have these football goals, so obviously you could have kids here playing football, but instead he has these two random boys. They may be brothers, they may be neighboring kids or something like this, but it seems like maybe the story that I have in my head about it is like the older boy maybe came to play alone, and then the younger boy, which is maybe a neighbor kid, came out with his robot toy, and then he said, "Oh, let me show you my robot toy," and then the older boy sat down and they started chatting. And this storytelling, this imagination that we get, because in my head, as you see, there's already a film running, like what's happening here, like how people communicate. And your favorite shot here, we have this once again, it seems like some type of a public area. And because it's kind of, this is what we see here in the back. And then you have the people here, there is a kicker, there are people cooking, chilling together. So there is so much story here. And then the interiors are empty, which I personally also prefer. I think people in interiors, unless they're those motion blurred people who just add a bit of dynamic, I think interiors are more than good the way they are. Because imagine that person here as well, it will be just full to the brim.
Yep.
Like cramped. But then we have another scene down here, and even though this dude maybe not be the most fitting set that you could use, it's great that you see that in the backyard people have built up some type of a training ground for their dogs, and they're playing with this. And then you see the mom with the kid on the balcony. So there are so many aspects and so many stories told here. It's like, it's not only just the next apartment block, it's actually your next home, and this is what you can do with it. And this is what my personal highlight here.
Yeah, and I wonder who, especially on the interior images, I wonder if John decorated the place themselves, because it's really nicely decked out. It's very full, and I feel like he thought about a lot of the details, because sometimes you see these overly minimalistic interiors, which is fine if that's the style, but in this case it's minimalistic, but it's also very full, right? There's a lot of elements in there.
It's homey, it's lived in,
it's lived in. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that I appreciate that in these images. Although I do acknowledge there's images where you don't want that. Don't get me wrong. It's just in these images, I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, these are great interiors. I absolutely agree. As far as I know, he works with with architects, so maybe the design was given. But when it comes to, I don't think that every single element, like every candle and vase, were given. So he knows how to add the right elements to create this homey and comfortable mood. And it's really great. Now, in terms of improvement, if you have nothing else to add, on the positive side. To the thing that you said in the beginning, I agree with you with this day mood, but on the very first shot, I find the daylighting to be a bit too cold. And given that this is like the first shot, like the introductional shots for this session, I'm not sure if this is such a great choice, because residential architecture usually is associated with comfort, with safety, and the colors that transmit this are usually warm colors. So given that you have a sunny day, I think that a bit of a warmer tone mapping would be a better choice with this one. But this is just, once again, my personal view. This is not so much the case with this shot and the next one, because they're kind of warmer. We already have the warm lights here. And then, of course, we have your favorite shot, which is very, very lit up from within. 3D people and animals, it seems like he didn't use the AI enhancer because you see here the hair and stuff, but I don't think this is done in Corona 13 but 12 yet. And yeah, on the animals you can pretty much see it, and this suit guy maybe doesn't quite fit in there, as Amit pointed out. So maybe a bit of a more casual looking person would look better or more fitting in this. And my personal final issue, I mean, here with the balcony, uh, as somebody who had two babies already, I don't like seeing open fire so close to a baby or an area where a baby is. So maybe a table would have been a bit better here, because open fire, smoke and stuff. This is annoying for the neighbors and such. But it looks great though. I mean, for the image, it looks amazing. And yeah, it's just the repetitive interiors. If we zoom in here through the windows, you see that the walls are the same, have the same TV, but I assume these are townhouses, and like everybody will like to design them in an individual way. Um, so in this particular case, I would say on one of the interiors that are so visible here, maybe put a rack with books or something different, so that it doesn't look copy pasted. But that's it, though. From my side, this have been the only issues. And yeah, as Danoshka really points out, from an architectural point of view, horizontal handrails are something that a kid can climb on and actually fall on the other side. So yeah, you need vertical ones. But this is probably part of the architectural concept. So yeah.
Gotta work with what you got.
Yeah, assumingly. Do you have anything else to add?
To be honest, there was just maybe a bit of a back and forth on this first image. Now, I agree with you. If this is like the cover image, I might just, I feel like the left side, the left building, just takes up a big amount of space, but it's, with this lighting at least, and with the architecture, if I may say so, doesn't look that appealing to me. It kind of detracts from the image. Like if you just look at the sort of right where the left building ends and just take that as the image, I think that would be much more pleasing. So what I would try to do in this case is maybe try a different lighting situation where there's maybe some interesting light play happening on that facade. Maybe that would even ruin it even more. But maybe what I wanted to mention is I kind of respectfully disagree with you a little bit that this is on the cold side, because on my screen at least, and hopefully it's calibrated well enough, the foreground gives me this warm, summery feel a little bit. So it really complements the otherwise colder tones, and I really quite find it endearing because of that. But we can disagree, and I could be wrong, and I agree with what you're saying from a like a
I don't think there is a right
standpoint.
and wrong here. This is exactly why it's so great that we have you here today, and people can hear two opinions and disagreements. We've also disagreed. There was one post where everybody was like, "Yeah, great, 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 great," and I came up and I know they were kind of criticizing one and the same point, like four people, and I came and I was like, this is exactly what I like about this post. So, and it's not that I'm more right than them. Yeah, I may have a bit more experience than many of the group, but it doesn't mean that my opinion is like always the ultimate truth or something like this. So in this particular case, we can easily disagree, and it's up to the artist in the end, and it's great for the artist actually to hear different points of view and decide for themselves.
I think that's so important, because like you get a lot of feedback sometimes, and ultimately you kind of just have to decide, I'm gonna take this to heart, this makes sense, and this really doesn't. So yeah, I very much agree with that.
Yeah, and I agree with it also with the point of view. I mean, honestly, with a settlement like this, I would have probably gone for a central perspective, in the middle between the two. But I'm not sure what the central perspective, like the focal point, would have been. So maybe if you do something like this in order to prevent such a flat-looking facade, because it doesn't have depth, I think this is what bothers you. Yes. I think we should go a bit more to the left with the camera so that we see the backside, like the depth of this building as well, because now it's like 2D and the other building is the only one which is 3D. Completely agree with this one. Yeah.
But I gotta just, I think from a, if I contracted you to do these images, I think I would consider this to be really well done. Make no mistake. Based on the limited amount of data that we know, especially so, I think it's a really fun image. We're being nitpicky and being a bit subjective as well, dare I say so, but yeah. And then also, I think a case to be made, what I'm noticing, especially on the product biz side of things, is sometimes depending on the product, if it's a luxury product, you do want to go into more colder tones sometimes, because somehow that's associated with luxury. Now I know that kind of doesn't induce warmth and what
Yeah.
what people typically think of when they think of their homes, but yeah, I'm just saying, like, I'm very open. I like it. I like it. But I do agree with your point. I do also slightly have a bit of a different subjective opinion.
Yeah,
So this is interesting.
John himself is in the comments and he's like, I like it more when you disagree and give feedback because other people learn, and me too. So yeah, he enjoys it. So yeah, and I think the warmth that we talk about, we clearly see also on the interiors. And I think this is why this, vanilla beige interior style is so popular, exactly because of the warm tones, those earth warm tones that make everything kind of, laid back. It looks like an area where you can easily rest. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think we this was a great one. So
Good
John,
job,
just pick
John.
the 3D people and then gladly add this to your portfolio. Yeah. Let's continue to the next one. We don't want to rush it, but we don't want you to be here for 3 hours. So let's move on to a project which is pretty much the opposite of the previous one. Previous one was like huge, consisted of exterior, interior areas. Here we have just one room, but still a very great project. So let me check out what Nael. This is how I read this name because otherwise it would be the National Hockey League in the USA. So I'll go with Nael. So it's a twin bedroom visualized with Corona Renderer. The aim was to create a functional, modern, and calm bedroom that merges work and rest in one space. So let's go through the images once to see them all. It's 4 images altogether. And Nate, what do you think?
Dude, I want to know what you think, but what I think is these are wonderfully executed from my point of view. Like, I don't know the specs. What exactly was the ultimate goal? What the brand is, but just showcasing the room and giving me moods and stuff like that. It's a small room, by the way. I like it. I like it a lot. I like the tones. I like the styling. I like the lighting, the little warm light. I'm a sucker for these types of lighting setups. It's just, I really like it. And the wide angle shots, I mean, I know people, sometimes wide angle shots are not the most wanted shots, I would say, in archivists, at least from my experience. Please disagree with me, but in this case, I really like what they add to the image. They add a little bit of visual interest to me. It's not just another one of those typical wide angle shots, and it's not straight on. It's from the angle of the room, and it's kind of fish-eyed. Dude, I find these really interesting. Like, kudos. Really like it.
Absolutely agree. I mean, to me, the highlight really are the lighting. The highlights here, the lighting and the angles, because we have nicely varied angles that make the session interesting to look at. And then when it comes to the lighting, we have just one very small source of natural lighting, which can turn into something which isn't that great. So most of what we see here is actually illuminated by artificial illumination, but it's done so well that it looks almost natural, and it's
Yep.
also pleasant to look at because we often see those images that are just flooded with light from artificial illumination, especially on spots from the ceiling, and then it loses every depth, it loses every you know contrast and everything, and it's just a bland room in the end. But here we have something that looks so great, and like the main artificial illumination works as it's supposed to. It provides just enough light for the room to be bright, and then you still have those highlights of artificial illumination that you can still enjoy, like what you see with this lamp here or what you see here by the TV. And this is really, really greatly executed. And when it comes to the angles, I really enjoy it. To me, it looks like a fisheye because of,
Mm-hmm.
here the distortion on the end, and it's a great way of using fisheye, because if the room is kind of more on the small side, more confined, it's very difficult to properly depicted. And of course, you can go with a very low focal length, but at some point, the distortions become so immense that everything looks weird. And for some reason, fisheye, despite those rounded forms, keeps the proportions way more closer to reality than a very low focal length. And we see this here, and we see the whole room from two different directions, and we can absolutely easily understand what the room is about. So great use of angles. And here, by the way, here you have used camera clipping, because this bed here is actually next to a wall, so it's not possible to see things this way, but it made for a very, very cool looking shot. And then the first one is an isometric view, and this is really, really nicely done. Also, good materials, good color scheme, very pleasant to wind down, just very similar to the previous project. And in terms of improvement, being an architect, I'm a bit difficult, and I always see things like this. This is just something I cannot not see. But I have a bit, because in your description, you talk about functionality, and there are some issues or some questionable aspects of this. So first of all, we see here the workplace. It's kind of very small, very narrow. The chair barely fits with this bedside table, which isn't that great. And then if we go to this shot, then we have a huge makeup table, which to me is kind of too big. And looking at this room, I gotta ask myself, how old are those twins? Because if they are teens, for example, this would mean that they probably go to school, meaning that they need way more space for learning, and also crafting, doing hobbies. Like my daughters, they are 10 and 4, so one doesn't go to school yet, the other one is in 4th grade, and they have like 2-meter long tables both, so that they can really have place for their textbooks and all of this stuff that comes with learning. And in case, let's say they're not teenagers anymore, they're young adults, let's say in their 20s, then it's kind of weird for them to share a room, because at some point, people need some privacy. So in terms of functionality, I'm not quite sure if the architectural concept is completely clear here, because once again, either they need more space for learning, or they would need more privacy and not two beds next to each other. This is just my view. How do you see it, Nate?
Dude, you're the professional here. You're the architect. I'm not. It sounds very reasonable what you said, and I very much agree with it now that you said it. I haven't thought about it because I'm not in the profession. So, but I mean, yes, it all makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and the second thing I saw is those documents on the nightstand, because usually people have a book, or let's say a glass of water, or something like this, some personal belongings, but not just like some official papers or something like this. So maybe think about a different set that you can put there. Now, Mariana, hi Mariana. I didn't greet you the first time I saw your name, but here we do it now. Mariana says, "Isn't it a hotel room?" Well, I don't know. I mean, if this is a hotel room, then all of my everything that I said doesn't really make sense. I mean, it's called a twin bedroom, but of course it could be a twin, not about twins, but like two beds in a hotel. In this case, this is actually a great room, because there is a place to, I don't know, do some research, or Google your sightseeing tour. There is a makeup table, there is a bed, there is a wardrobe. If this is a hotel room, then everything's perfect, actually. I don't know. This is why it's so important to give proper descriptions to your project, by the way.
One thing maybe that I would add is from a business perspective. I don't know how everyone else's clients are, but a lot of times, especially when I was working in Arcos, you would get a room, and they wanted you or the interior designer to kind of outfit it. Now you can do that very quickly, and you can ask, "Is this a living room?" And then you can just go to work, right? But to your point, Theodore, right? If you dive a little bit deeper and offer a better service, in that sense, you can start talking with the client. What exactly do you want? Who's this for? How they're going to use it? What's their lifestyle if this is like privately owned and they're building a house or whatever? You can ask so many good questions to avoid potential pitfalls that we just discussed. Not that these are pitfalls. We don't know the background. We don't know. Maybe it is a hotel room, right? But these are some of the things where you can really help your client sometimes. Depends on the client, depends on the project. But I think this really adds value. And if you're motivated by helping people, this is also it. This is how you can help your clients, asking the right questions, making sure they don't have images that are, people are going to look at them and be like, well, this ain't a room for me, right?
Yeah,
and you're trying to have a target audience, right? So maybe things to maybe consider. Now, I not in this specific case, we don't know the background, but I'm just saying maybe as a bit of a business kind of look at things.
Yeah, they absolutely agree. Communication is key, and this is very, very important for both sides, not only for the client, but also for yourself as well. Because if you don't ask enough questions and not sure what to do, you do something. Let's say you do twin room for. Like in pink, because you think you want to do something for girls and you think it should be pink, and then people are like, first of all, I would have boys, but even if I had girls, I wouldn't want it to be pink. And and then you have to rework it, and it's your time, because if you did
That's
it
the thing,
wrong, so to speak, clients won't be able to eager to pay twice. So yeah, but yeah, here of course there are some personal belongings that we see here, like these I consider decorations, which doesn't speak for a hotel room. This is what is confusing here, and this is why you need to be very specific with your descriptions, because if we, let's say, knew this is a hotel room, I would advise against using these, because that's then too much decoration for a hotel room. But yeah, anyway, I think we should move on so that we don't do this here forever. But yeah, great work otherwise, really nicely implemented. Just figure out the functionality and then try to follow it as much as possible before adding to your portfolio. Now let's continue with another very interesting project. It is an animation. I won't play the sound of it because in the past we've had royalty issues and the episode and the recording being blocked in some countries. But there is a great sound to it. If you're curious, go back and watch it in the group. But yeah, this is an animation, an example of still images turned into an AI animation. And actually a great example of using all the tools at your disposal, what we talked about. It doesn't matter how you achieved it, it matters what you deliver in the end. And also making the most out of your work. So you already did the renders for this bathroom. Why not also do an animation, especially if you have AI that can really, really help you with this. In the meantime, while we're watching this, we have a question by Amit to you, Nate. It's a bit of an off topic, but yeah, it's about the Corona Academy. Has the page of the Corona Academy changed? Because previously he says it was something else, and now it's under Corona Catalog. Do you know something about this topic?
Yeah. So the Corona Academy got merged into the Chaos Academy, and that's a pretty new thing. And I think the team knows everything's not quite as optimal yet. But you gotta. We're moving things, and there's it is known. The link to the Corona Academy should now take you to the Chaos Academy, where things are arranged a little bit differently.
That's a good move, if you ask me, because we started with the Corona Academy, but then the Chaos Academy was added, and then we had two places to learn. Like Corona was, something special, too good for the Chaos Academy, which doesn't make sense. And now we have it here. I didn't know about this, but it's great that you mentioned this, and thanks for the explanation. Now let's go back to Weverton's project and talk a bit about this. So more or less what he did is He defined a scope and created a mood board, which is a great first step. Then he searched for fitting assets and materials, modeled the architecture, set the render in white version, which I think is just for setting up the lighting, populated the scene, textured it, rendered it, the final images, and then generated this video out of the final images with the help of Clink AI. And in my personal opinion, this is a wonderful looking video that brings a lot of life to the concept. And yeah, what do you think, Nate?
I agree with you. This is amazing. To be honest, I missed the part where it's basically AI generated in a lot of ways. So that's really awesome. The visual style, which was defined through the still images, right? Amazing. Well, the still images, the white version images, right? If I'm getting this right. Amazing. Although I will be a bit critical here with regards to the actual animation. It's a little herky jerky. I would assume it's because of the AI interpolation. Some of the like the vertical lines on one of the close-up shots, which are amazing, by the way, in so many ways, in my opinion. Of course, everything's just subjective opinion. But they're really kind of like the little details are kind of taking it away from me a little bit. I can totally can see brands use this type of video for advertising. But I'm also, and I'm sorry, it's just my opinion. I do feel like certain brands that are more luxury oriented probably would want a more some of these kinks ironed out. But the visual aesthetic, the design, dude, like what the heck, amazing.
Oh, shit, I'm on mute and and I'm talking and talking. I'm very sorry. Thanks, Hamid. Yeah. So what I was saying is that everything is only possible because people, fearing for their jobs and stuff. But with AI, producing something so amazing. But the thing is that the base, the foundation, this AI video is built upon are some wonderful renders that came up done with Corona. So first we had great modeling, fine materials, wonderful color scheme, beautiful lighting. Just take a look at those color tonal contrasts. It already everything was there, and this is the foundation which was given to AI to create this animation. So without the first step, it's not a one-click solution. It's not like a client would say, make me this specific bathroom and then go to Clink and Clink will do this. No, you have to first be able to create these amazing renders and then the animation will happen. So and then you also need to know how to prompt this animation, how to put it together. So you need to have so many ideas, so much expertise. You cannot be easily replaced just because AI can create a video like this out of some static images. This is very, very important to know, in my opinion. And here, in terms of improvement, my only point is that the water is kind of unnaturally moving, especially without any water flowing from the faucet. There is no wind on the inside, so you don't need to have waves. It doesn't boil as well, and nobody's drowning too, so don't do this. Have the water move.
Maybe it's the jacuzzi jets.
maybe it's a jacuzzi. If this is a jacuzzi, I take it back, but I think it looks different in this case. Yeah. But anyway, I think this is an amazing example, really, of doing the most out of your work. You already have amazing shots that you would add to your portfolio. Why not go to Clink or whatever software AI tool? It doesn't matter, and also animate it. Of course, you can do it now with Vantage. You can do it with Corona, but experiment. Try to figure out what suits you, what is good for you, what can save you time, and if it does, then add it to your toolkit. It's important. That's just my opinion. Nate, any final words about this one?
No, I agree. I agree, dude. Great points. Amazing work with some, dare I say, drawbacks. But yeah, the looks are amazing.
Totally agree. Okay, and now we have two absolute visual traits. Not that the works we had so far weren't amazing, but you know what I mean when you see it. So first of all, we have this work by Irakli. He writes, "As a 3D artist, I'm excited to share my latest artwork titled Absinthe Mystique, rendered in Corona Render. I used a Polyhaven HDRI map to achieve stunning results. Candlelight, absinthe taking center stage, and natural atmosphere all come together beautifully. Share your thoughts." Um, a great project to share thoughts on because this is just such a beautiful work. To me personally, this resembles like a still life painting. You know, this Danish or the Dutch golden age of paintings, which I even picked
Yeah,
one
yeah,
article to show you. This is so close, you know, these typical motives of having food and drinks. Well, this Dutch Golden Age focuses mainly on breakfast stuff, but who knows? Maybe some people also have absinthe for breakfast. But yeah, if you take a look at the style here, it's very similar. And yeah, once again, we have the typical motives like the food, the drinks, the natural stuff like the rosemary, the I think it's juniper. I'm not sure about this one. Also, the typical color scheme, those earth tones. It's just so elegant, right?
absolutely, absolutely. It works so well. It reminds me. I don't know if you've been around at the time, Theodore. You probably were, but way back, Grant Warwick started doing these still life images, kind of similar to this, and then everyone started doing this.
Yeah,
These types of images, and I'm glad to see people still do them because they you can. What's some impressive the most to me is you've got a finite number of elements, and they're very simple elements. It's a table, it's a wall, it's
yeah,
a piece of glass, and a bunch of other stuff. But that's it, and it's all simplistic. But that's the beauty of still life. It looks good. It looks endearing. It looks detailed. It's visually pleasing to look at, and it tells a bit of a story. So it's like it's I find this very artistic because it's hard to achieve, at least for me, to have like five different elements and make something out of them, right?
yeah. It's poetically arranged everything.
Yeah,
You
well
gotta know
said.
how to do it. Really, it looks like it's slightly messy, but actually. It seems like the composition, every piece of this composition has been a deliberate choice. And knowing Irakli, I'm sure this is the case here. And what I also really have to compliment, this is such a wonderful example of chiaroscuro, right? Because we have those wonderful tonal contrasts. And here, I'm sorry, this is what we do in the show from time to time. We have a bit of a theory for the people who are like, what, well, is chiaroscuro and tonal contrast not one and the same? Well, kinda. Like tonal contrast is the difference between the light and the dark. This is what it is. And chiaroscuro is using that difference in order to tell a story or create a mood or something like this. So chiaroscuro is a type of tonal contrast, but not every tonal contrast is chiaroscuro, if that makes sense, right? So what we have here is this dark background, and then the corner here beautifully lit up with wonderful focus and depth of field, and every object, every material you can literally feel it through the image, and it sticks out so nicely visually. So this is a wonderful example of chiaroscuro. And
If
also,
if I may say something myself,
please,
is what I'm learning here myself as well is take a look at the table, right? There's this diagonal highlight across the table, that edge. Yeah. Now imagine like this comes from the material itself and from the position of the light, right? But if you just had the glossiness or the roughness, if you turn up the roughness a little too high, this kind of starts fading out. And you lose a lot of, to me at least, you lose a lot of what makes this extra interesting because you have that's the almost the brightest part of the image, and it's that center kind of. You lose that through the material, it starts looking differently, and now it has this sort of like almost like it has a clear coat on it, like some sort of varnish or something. it's obviously roughened up, but it looks a little bit wetter, right? And this to me really makes it, if this was like a matte wooden material, probably this image would lose a lot. I would dare say, could be wrong, but yeah, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with this. I mean, I don't know if Irakli adapted the materials. I can very much imagine. This is also a very nice looking asset from the Quixel library, which I also use for a scene that I'm working on the site now. It's a wonderful asset, but this is a part of the thing. Once again, what counts is the final image. Nobody needs you to have created everything from scratch so that your image is better. You know, most people will just see this and be like, this is amazing. I don't give a damn if he created this from scratch, if he photo scanned it himself,
Yeah.
or if he downloaded it from an existing library. What counts is that he knows how to arrange everything in such a beautiful way, how to set up the lighting, and how to tell a story. This is what matters in this particular case, and everything is absolutely here. Like, yeah, the only thing I would criticize here, it's a very minimal point, but you see here how those decals on the wall, the cracks are actually very repetitive. It's the same decal, just scaled a bit up and down and rotated to the side. So given how many there are in the Cosmos library, you can use a bit more, you know, just use different decals instead of just copy pasting the same one and scaling it up and down. But apart from this, this is just so beautiful. If I were you, this would be hanging on my wall by now,
Yeah,
just
definitely.
on a
Definitely.
huge canvas.
Definitely, definitely. Very printable material. The
Yeah,
only sort of criticism that I would have is just maybe just spending a little bit more time on the glassy materials, maybe on the candle as well, and the metal sort of blueberry holder thingy, just to add some of those really, really, really small details, like little scratches, like because no metal is kind of doesn't come out perfect, right? It always has some sort of scratches, some sort of mini bumps and bruises. Like if you were to add that, I think this could go, this could be even more sort of detailed. But dude, this is not taking, this is just purely like, okay, what can we, there's always something to
this
improve,
is
like,
nitpicking. We just want to
yeah.
find something so that you're not the only one without criticism, Irakli. But
This
yeah, I mean, Nate's right.
sorry, this reminds me of you know how people criticize, I don't know, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, or
Yeah,
whatever. These are the best people at their craft, but
yeah.
the truth is that they could still get better, right? So I'm just saying, like, it's one of those things. Like, this is awesome work, but if we because we're trying to find things that are maybe that could still be improved. Let's maybe mention a few things that we can be nitpicky about.
We criticize because this is our way of supporting you. This is the thing. We see that you put the effort, you really want to create something amazing, and you did. And our only way of helping you is by giving you a bit of more things to think about, topics to think about, so that next time it's even better. Because obviously this is what you want, and this is our way of helping you. This is not putting you down. This is the opposite. This is supporting you. So I hope you realize this. Anyway, wonderful work, Irakli. Total
Amazing work,
beauty.
dude.
Thanks for sharing. And let's go to the final project we want to talk about today, but another massive, massive beauty we couldn't have skipped on today's show. It is this work by Ewelina. So let me read what she writes. Hello, everyone. Within the Equilibrium marks the next chapter in my personal creative journey. After nearly 3 years of stillness, observation, and inner redesign. The inspiration comes from classic, timeless Chinese temples, to me, the most significant and ultimate symbol of harmony and inner balance. Set within the heart of the mysterious jungle, this vision emphasizes the magical and meditative nature of the space. Every detail, from the circular base to the flooring roof, is designed to embody inner balance. This space was not only modeled, it was felt. Thank you. This is a sanctuary of light, proportion, and peace, built entirely in CGI. Thank you for entering this vision. I hope you find, within the stillness of its form, a small moment of your own equilibrium. It's done in Max, Corona, with Quixel Megascans, Forest Pack, Photoshop, Mesh AI, Magnific, and with Journey. And Honestly, let's just go to the images because I mean, Nate, this one I will leave to you because I'm out of words. But before we actually go through the images and you say what you have to say about it, let me let's talk about Ewelina's project description and presentation. Now, Ewelina is a total pro, a huge inspiration for me and for many, many other artists out there. In fact, she was, or her work was among the reasons why I decided to go in Corona in 2019 when I decided to switch from Rhino with V-Ray to Max and either V-Ray or Corona. And the thing is, I had seen many, by this point, many good looking or great looking images done in Corona, but most of them have been interiors. The thing is, though, by this point, I was more of an, or mainly an exterior artist, and I wasn't sure if Corona will be there for my needs. But then I saw a sampler of exteriors done by different artists, among whom was also Ewelina's work. And I saw that, yes, Corona can definitely be there for me as long as I'm a great artist, as those people are. So, yeah, she's really great. There is no other opinion, I think, to this topic. But now take her description. It's first of all very beautifully put, right? And also it's so detailed. We hear about every tool that she used. There is a backstory included and a personal one too. And then she's even addressing the viewer. You see how she says, "Thank you for entering this vision. I hope you find within the stillness of its form a small moment of your own equilibrium." So there is so much thought and effort put into this description, and this is exactly as it should be, because this provides the finish to all her efforts and all the hours or days she invested in her work, and this is the proper finish for that. We've already talked about this many times in the show, people just dropping their work and saying interiors. Yeah, we see that they are interiors. Tell us more about them so that we better understand and better value your work. And also, by doing something like what Ewelina did here, you also show some self-respect as well, because you've spent, I last time I gave you the analogy with cooking a wonderful meal, spending hours or making it very tasty, and then just going and throwing it at your guests. You wouldn't do that. Of course, the tasty meal will still be tasty, but it will leave a bad taste in the mouths of your guests because you just threw it at them, right? So of course, when you cook this meal, you also make sure to serve it in a proper way so that it's like a finished and completed experience, right? And even if you don't see those points, make it so that people can provide you, be pragmatic and make it so people can provide you with more um, focused and more feedback that makes more sense, right? So learn from Ewelina, please, and do the same. This is just very important, and you see great, very established, very seasoned and skilled artists do it as well. Anyway, Nate, I'll just start scrolling through the images and you can start. I don't know what you're gonna say. It's just so awesome. But yeah, please do.
Dude, just for a second, I want to piggyback on what you said. I think that's a very important point that you just made. Presentation is key. We're in the creative, sort of creative visual sort of field, but that doesn't mean we just throw images at people. It's nice to have a story. It's nice to have a description, something that people can relate to, something that people can connect to, and at the very least to give them an idea of what they're looking at if they don't get the full picture, just something that ties everything together. And I would even say that for all of you trying to go their own sort of separate ways, freelancing, have their own companies, very important skill set to have. Present yourself, present your work. And that doesn't mean do sorry, I'm going to be a bit more um, oddly worded here, a fake ass marketing. You don't have to do that. Just present what you've created. Do what, describe what the problems you're trying to solve. Describe the story that you're creating, and just do things like that. Just be honest about your work, and like Theodore said, have some self-respect. I think that takes you a long way, even into how you present yourself to your peers, to your clients. well, and to yourself as well. If you don't take yourself seriously, if you don't think about the work that you're creating, well, you're going to be better off if you do. Is all I think I'm trying to say here. So
I
sorry,
mean,
just picking back on what you said because I think it is important.
it's important, it's absolutely essential actually. If it's, it doesn't matter if it's for a competition, if it's about showing it to fellow artists or to your client, you need to be able to present yourself. And once again, this is the final step. You've spent days on something, you don't want to throw it out just there. Just give it a proper 5-10 minutes and write something, explain yourself. You cannot expect to be understood if you don't properly explain yourself. You know how many times I've written lengthy feedbacks to people only for them to tell me, yeah, but you don't understand, this is actually quite something else. And then I'm like, you then tell me, because how do you want me to know? Do you know Baby Bell, those small cheeses? You know them?
I don't know them.
Yeah, we have them here, but I remember first time I tried it, I was a kid at school, and somebody gave it to me. They have become quite popular, and somebody gave it to me. And as you can see, they are wrapped in a foil. So I opened the foil and just bit into this thing, and they were like, "No, what are you doing there? You shouldn't be doing this." Because what you see here, they have a coat of wax on the outside that's also protecting the cheese. But where the hell should I know this? Why don't you tell me? I'm not doing anything wrong. I see a red cheese and I think, okay, this is a red cheese. Let me bite into the red cheese. But it's not red cheese, it's wax. But I don't know it. If you want people to do things right, then tell them how, give them the foundation for this. Yeah, maybe a stupid example, but yeah, learn to communicate. This is important. Now let's continue going
Yeah,
through Evelina's images. And yeah, Nejc, what do you think? Kind of
Ewelina,
realistic, right?
dude, like, I mean, girl, good job. This is amazing work. Like, what can you say? Like, each image has its own story, focal point, um, interesting visually, playing with colors, playing with perspectives, playing with basically one of the images um, has you watching it rain coming off the roof or something like
Oh
that.
yeah, let's go to this one. I think she just went there, took some photos, and knowing how good she is, she just shared them here. And now she says these have been renders, but these are actual photos because they're so good. Now, jokes aside, but yeah, just take a look at this one.
It's just amazing. Every image has something special about it. Now, I will say this: they don't always look the most realistic to me. They look surreal to me, but that's what I also like about this. It has this consistent visual style throughout, and it doesn't always have to be, in my opinion, not. I wouldn't qualify this work as hyper realistic, like some, in that sense. But it doesn't matter because this has its own visual language, visual style. It's surreal to me, and it like the images, they're visually interesting. They have stories. Like there's just amazing work, dude. Like what? Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, what did you say? Respectfully, wouldn't quite agree.
Okay.
I mean, because no, of course I agree. These are amazing, amazing images, and I absolutely love what you said about every image having its own story, like an old topic, and it's so well done, and there is something happening in such an elegant way. These are amazing. These are, people should learn from these absolutely. And if Ewelina decides to do a course and just to explain how she did uh, this course will be very quickly sold out. But when it comes to all the images, because here, once again, the presentation, just take a look at this. This also belongs to the presentation. It's not only the text. See how the images visually go together, how she
Mhm.
put them together, the layout and everything. This is what a pro does. Don't just throw your work out there. Think about the presentation. It's immensely important. But yeah, to me personally, there are some shots. I mean, there it's a bit of a mix. There are some shots like the one at the top here, or the one down here, or the one with with the raindrops, that are absolutely cinematic and photorealistic. And this one, just take a look at this one. It's could be just a frame from a movie, right? Um,
Mhm.
uh, but then there are the green ones that suddenly have a bit of like, if we take a look at these could be photos, right? Especially something like this. This is just a photo. Okay, it's a 3D photo. That's what it is to
Fair
me.
enough. Fair enough.
Um, but if we take a look at those ones, they are the ones that I would agree with you more with having their own style because they're not so realistic anymore. Mika in the comments asked if there is AI enhancement. Yes, she
Hmm.
describes this in her text to the post. But yeah, these here to me are a bit maybe too stylized, a bit too perfect. Like they are so harmonious, and of course, we have a bit of this AI fakeness, like you see here with the tail of the chameleon. But looking at those, especially this one, this could be a perfect advertisement for a zoo, for example, right? You have
Yeah.
here the slogan somewhere and something because everything has this green tint atop, and I think this was like a deliberate decision on her side because obviously she put the images together in the end, so she knows that these kind of very much stand out compared to the rest. But I don't think this is a bad thing. She just explored something else. Like there was photorealism here, like the top shot here in the middle or the bottom shot in the middle. They are to me very very photorealistic, and to me there are also stylized shots as well. But I don't see an issue with this because as an artist, you are always, especially with personal project, it's great to explore, to see where this can lead you to. And even if it doesn't maybe quite fit in the session, in the looks of the session or aesthetics of the session, they are still wonderful images on their own. They're a bit too perfect for my taste. I miss a bit the edge and the grit and imperfections from the tempo shots. Like here, where not everything is like perfect because here the framing is just so perfectly staged that it's a bit too much for my taste. But they are amazing images on their own, just different to the images that we had otherwise. This is how I perceive it. But with a work like this, I think this is maybe just my equilibrium, so to speak.
Yeah, it's amazing work. And one thing that I just noticed when you had the grid on is top left image is going to be that green.
This one,
Yeah, green image, middle green image.
yeah,
So you get this diagonal line. Pretty sure that was intentional, but if
absolutely,
not, what a cool coincidence. Because everything, just looking at the grid is pleasing. The only thing that kind of throws me off is how white the lower left image is. It kind of draws my eye a little bit. But this is a grid, so not necessarily sort of the focal point of the project in that sense, I would dare say. But yeah, no, I see your point, Theodore. I see your point. And some of these, yeah, they're just, yeah, definitely realistic looking. But I do still find this cinematic, surreal aesthetic to them nonetheless. But it doesn't matter. They're great. We both agree they're great, right? So it's probably just a subjective experience of our past experiences.
of course. We're just nitpicking because we have to, and because the higher the level of an artist, the more nitpicky the feedback becomes, obviously, right? We won't be talking here about modeling and materials or lighting or volumetrics because Ewelina absolutely rocks all of those topics, right? So obviously what we start searching for is like, is everything completely perfect or something like this? So yeah, this is not meant in any bad way. Once again, it's meant as our way of supporting all her efforts and her wonderful work in order for her to become an even greater artist, and if possible at all.
I mean, on a personal note, even when I'm done with the project and the client is super happy and I'm super happy with it, I always tend to ask myself, okay, that was great, really awesome, but what could be done even better? Not to be depressed, like and always chasing the next big thing or anything, or trying to be constantly just a superstar or whatever, because I don't think we are that. But in the sense that there's always something to improve.
Sure.
And I like thinking about that. As much as I like thinking about all the stuff that I've done well and the client was happy and all that, there's still stuff that could have been improved. So I just, it's good. I think it's good practice. And I think that's what kind of we're doing here, because Ewelina, she's top game here, right? So who are we to say anything? But it's trying to, come up with some feedback.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, this is just amazing, and I absolutely agree with you. We usually don't finish works like this, like a mathematical equation which has a final outcome which is solid and that's everything. We kind of abandon them at some point where we're happy enough with them. But yeah, thinking about what could be improved or what could be done differently is there's nothing wrong with that. And this is what we're doing here, thinking out loud as if this was our project. But obviously, to everybody seeing this is one absolutely amazing and terrific work, and inspiring as usual, Ewelina. And it really seems like your inner redesign was absolutely worth it. So yeah, Nejc, we're 2 hours in, but we promised a bit of a Q&A. Do you still have time,
Yeah,
or
I
do
have
you have to
about
go?
10 minutes or so. 12.
Okay. Oh, Ewelina is here. Let me read her feedback in the comments. Thank you so much for your thoughtful words. I appreciate your feedback. So happy to hear the description resonated as well. It's always nice when it helps people connect more deeply with the meaning behind this work. I think we would have understood it because your visual storytelling is so great, but I think it absolutely belongs to a professional's project to be delivered this way and have such a description. So you did an amazing job all around, not only with the images, but also with the description as well. Thank you in return. Okay, folks, do you have any questions for Nejc? Nejc, I want to, if when people are writing down their questions, I want to ask you something because you described yourself to be more on the introverted side, but at the same time, in a talk like this, you appear so laid back, so confident. So how come? How does it happen? Did you grow into it, or did you eventually visit a course or something like, or use voodoo rituals, whatever it is? Can you share your secret with us?
I have no idea. I constantly ask my wife this. Is I'm an introvert, but I do like recording tutorials and I do like hanging out with people and do webinars and do live presentations. It's just nice to be able to interact with people. I don't know. I guess what I would say is there's like yin and yang thing, the black and white thing, but I think there's gradients to it. So while I do like my time alone and with my family and not being sort of out there, I do also enjoy the occasional outings and the stuff that I do. So I don't know. It's maybe it's more of a gradient than being just an introvert or an extrovert. There's maybe you can be a predominantly introverted person, but there's certain aspects where you feel extroverted. And I think maybe that's what I am. I'm not sure. But I definitely consider myself an introvert, yes.
I understand. Well, do you have any advice for the people who maybe have a bit social anxiety or too shy to go in front of the camera? What can they do in order to, become better at it and overcome their fears? And what I recommend, what I will try to do in this show is to have people from the group do the same what we did today and be with me and be my co-reviewer within the show. So to challenge themselves. I don't know any other thing. Of course, I myself at some point, this was back in study times, I myself visited a rhetoric seminar, which helped me a lot. But in the end of the day, you need to just start doing it and challenging yourself. How do you see this?
I very much agree with that, dude. Like, I think it's important to, if if it's not your job necessarily in that sense, like your job depends on it, then try and make sure it's something that you do think you might enjoy, because it's good to be motivated like that. But then you just gotta go do it. And once you go do it, like you're not gonna be that good at it. Typically, people aren't when they start doing something. But the only way to get better is to do things, to fail, and to continue improving. And that's the normal thing. And it might seem unnatural. It might seem like everyone else is doing it better. But truth of the matter is, unless you're somehow born with some sort of a talent, most people, that's how we do it. Like you just start somewhere and you go there. Like there's so much that I need to improve on my end with all the tutorials. I'm reading all the comments everyone leaves. Some are a little bit harsh, some are really heartwarming, but it's constantly like Tom will tell you, I'm constantly like, I want to improve this, there's this to improve, blah blah blah, and there is a lot of to improve, but that's okay. You know, people are still learning, they still enjoy the content, and we improve together. That's how I was just doing it.
So this is what I recommend to them or encourage them to go step up and go with me live in the show, because here we have a safe environment. We're here among friends, nobody is judgy. These are not so important international clients, but I think if your English is your issue or being shy is your issue, I think these are things you should actually face and challenge, because especially if you want to grow, have international clients or international um, contacts, maybe become a speaker on some event, you need to be able to do this. And this community here, or the school community, 3D artist community like Jake Denham, is another great option for you to test out something like this in a safe and controlled environment, where nobody will, even if you fail or not that great, nobody will laugh at you or something like this. So yeah.
Theodore, I think that's key. Like, people take advantage of what Theodore is saying here. I would say is go in it, and go do the thing. You have a nice environment here, so take advantage of it.
Oh shit,
right?
We're here actually. Yes, I see. So yeah, I have a different preview than what's actually happening. So yeah, listen to Nejc, please. Now we have a question from Amit asking, do you do any personal and commercial projects still, or are you full-time dedicated to chaos?
Yeah, well, basically, I do commercial work pretty much 50% of my time or thereabouts, maybe a little bit more. And the rest is chaos. So I'm like an external contractor for chaos. I work with the team every day, but I do still do production work. So it's kind of like I'm not full-time necessarily in that sense. I just helped out. You can think of it like as an external consultancy and just helping out that way, I guess.
And how does a freelancer, you're self-employed, how does a freelancer start collaborating with chaos, if this is not a secret, of course? What expertise is needed in case maybe somebody in this group or somebody watching the recording later wants to do the same?
Dude, this is going to take just a couple of minutes to explain, but I think it kind of goes back to what we just talked about putting yourself out there, even if you're being uncomfortable. So I did work at a studio at some point, but when I started out, I started out myself. And so the only way to hang out around similar-minded people was on the forums. And the Corona forums was one of those places. And it was just about hanging out, talking with people, helping people, them helping me, just this collaborative community effort, if you will. Well, at some point, the Corona team, if I recall correctly, they needed help with making tutorials. And I was like, listen, guys, I have some experience recording some stuff in the past because I did work for Digital Tutors and Pluralsight. I don't know if you know those websites, but I did a couple of courses for them, very early days for me in terms of recording stuff. And they were obviously like, okay, you have some experience and you seem like a cool person. So yeah, let's start working together. But one thing, and I don't think I ever told anyone this before, is once I got access to the internal systems, they had this internal wiki set up like most other companies.
Yeah.
And I was scrolling on there and they had this description of me, like a notable user, because I was really active on the forums. They were like, this really cool, nice dude that seems to know a lot about Corona and is a really nice dude helping other users. And when I was talking to some of the other team members, they were like, yeah, it was a natural fit that they kind of chose me to do the tutorials because, yes, I had some experience, but I was also a very nice, they thought I was a very nice person. I hope they still think that, person. And so just what I find interesting is I never banked on that being the case. You know what I mean? I was just there partaking in the community. And before you know it, some people have heard of you, they kind of like you or they like your work, and now you're working together. Now, in this case, I'm working with Chaos, but like, there's certain parts of projects, for example, modeling some really difficult stuff that I essentially give other people to do for me, right? I step into sort of a creative director role for certain projects, non-chaos related. And where I heard of these people, well, over on the forums. And then eventually it was just a tight knit community. I run my own Slack with like 6 different people that I trust to be there, and they always are there because we kind of formed a friendship. But again, how it happened was talking over on the forums, meeting on the forums, or meeting in real life, and not really having an agenda, but you're just clicking, and then you see their expertise, and you're like, well, hey, I need this. Would you be willing to work with me on a regular basis? You know what I mean? Just
So
putting yourself out there, being a member of a community. Don't be too shy. Like,
yeah, people need to know you're there. If you can be the best one. If nobody knows about how good you are, nobody will be able to reach out to you,
yeah.
either as clients for work or for collaborations or something. I absolutely agree. You got to put yourself out there. You got a network. You got to be active, and people then know your name. Like, for example, we have people in this group here. I don't want to call names, but everybody knows those people who are so active, who are so awesome. So yeah, and of course, if I needed help at some point managing the group or whatever, I know who to reach out to, and suddenly they're a part of the process. So this is what happened to you. In my personal case, I was just providing feedbacks to other people. At some point, I pitched providing feedbacks in a video format rather than written form, and this is how I got in collaboration with Chaos. And in the meantime, I'm managing the group, and who knows, more and more work doing and collaborating with them. So yeah, this was a great advice. Thank you so much for it. I have a question from Danushka asking, how do you find Corona or V-Ray compared to Octane or other project-oriented renders?
Okay, every renderer has its pros and cons.
You don't need to be politically correct, just so not within the limits of keep it realistic.
Of course. I've used Octane in the past. Really enjoying the render, really enjoying the things that they have going on. But ultimately, I ended up using Corona for its ease of use, and quite frankly, I was able to get to the result that I wanted faster. And that's just a personal thing. Like, I think all these render engines are capable. It just comes down to what the workflows you prefer, to an extent, the ecosystem around them. So if you're an ArcViz, maybe something like Corona or V-Ray is probably going to have more assets created for them. Now, that might not matter for you. It most certainly did not for me, because I'm primarily a C4D user the last couple of years. So I don't know. I don't think there's that big differences. Every render engine is capable. It just comes down to the feature set that you prefer and is more suited to your work. And I think that's what I would say.
All right. Danushka says, really great to have you here with us. It feels really amazing. Thank you so much for the effort of making those cool tutorials. From me too.
Thank you.
They're amazing, and we learn a lot from them. Yeah, we've already discussed some of them in the show. Mika asks, how many hours are you logged in your computer? Do you do other things outside Corona or ArcViz? Do you do ArcViz? This was another question by Kama. Do you only do product visualizations or mostly ArcViz? If ArcViz, do you prefer exterior or interiors?
So for the first leg of my career was ArcViz, but then I gradually started moving to product viz without even knowing about it. I always branded myself as an ArcViz artist, but then I realized I haven't made an ArcViz image in 2 years. You know what I mean? So I'm mainly in product viz right now. Locked in my computer, I'm pretty specific. Like, I really enjoy my work, and I find that to be a gift. I know, Theodore, you said, like, in the beginning of this stream is like, it's hard to, like, you said something about enjoying work, not being work, stuff like that, right?
Having a hobby and not working, making your hobby your job, then you won't be working a day in your life. This is how the saying goes.
Yeah, and to be honest, I feel it. There's days where you just don't feel like it, right? And that's normal. But I feel like I could do this for like 10, 12 hours a day. But I am being strict in keeping things locked to 8 hours. And that's just because I've noticed mistakes start creeping in if I do more than 8 hours every day. I'm very into it and I'm really enjoying it, but I also like to feel like I'm a wholesome person from a standpoint of I do sports. I really enjoy basketball. I immensely enjoy spending time with my wife. So it's with my friends. And so I want to keep that as well. And what I found about, and this is for me personally, how this works is after 8 hours, I'm like, oh, but I could squeeze an hour or two in. I really want to because I want to do this on this image, whatever, right? You want to learn new techniques, whatever. But then I'm like, no, stop it. It's 8 hours. Get off the computer. And then I'm really excited when the next day comes because I'm like, wow, dude, yeah, I'm finally get to try that. You know what I mean? So it's almost like giving yourself a bit of a ceiling, an artificial ceiling, even though you could still go, you could still, run,
Yeah.
but you're saying no, stop. And the next day you're not as fatigued and you can run even better. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, I think getting this. Oh yeah, you still have the question about interiors or exteriors being your favorite. But yeah, let me throw in that I think that getting a bit of a distance to something that you're currently working on is sometimes really really important, because people tend to get lost in their work. And when you have like a night between your work days, and then you come back to it and you see some things that you didn't see the day before. So getting this working the whole time and then just sleeping and going back to it isn't cutting it, because you start not seeing with clear eyes.
I definitely agree. Although I will say this, that there's different people out there. For some people, that's how they like to work. They like to be at it 3 straight days without, what,
Yeah.
just make sure it's healthy. And then they want to have 2 days of a break. That's
Yeah.
fine too, right? Just figure out what you like. And what I do think is important is to keep some sort of a balance. Whether you like it or not, we're humans. And I think most of us like some sort of a balance to keep things interesting in the long run. Remember, like being in this industry is for most people not going to be a short sprint. It's more like a marathon, right? So you gotta treat your body right. You gotta treat your mind right. Although I do know, especially at the beginning, that's really hard when you don't have the clientele, you don't have the skill set necessarily. But I guess that's kind of like a rite of passage. That's how I think of it. Sometimes you just got to put in the hours. And to be honest, it still happens to me. Like, the client needs something by the X date, and you really, really didn't account for something, and you really want to deliver, and then you do overtime in that sense. It happens. It happens in every job, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's very understandable. I mean, we're artists. We also have the passion, as Danushka says here, and I mean, it agrees. Can't sleep when you have that itch. And
Yeah.
yeah, I understand it. I mean, creating those images, those vintage images to share with the community. On the previous episode of the show, I was helping my daughter set up her room and so on. And the whole time I would run back between the two rooms. Her room is opposite of my studio, and I would just run between the two rooms because I had a new idea. How about adding a scorpion? How about neon light? How about whatever? And I would just come back because I knew with Vantage I can do it very quickly and then just go back to helping her. So yeah, I understand this. But I think when you brute force it, like you work a week and the whole time and you just sleep and do stuff, then you need to balance it out, as you said, and even it out in a way. But don't do it like as a lifestyle, because you will pay a price at some point, and this won't be a nice price. And it will be your health that's going to be the cost of this type of living. And you don't want this, because the moment your health is ruined, you cannot continue with what you like. So what do you do to keep yourself healthy, both physically and mentally? Apart, you said spending time with your wife, watching basketball.
Yeah, I mean, playing basketball, that's big for me because
Playing basketball, even better.
I'm a pretty sporty person. I know I'm pretty skinny and all, but I do like to play sports a lot. And it's, well, not too much, but I do enjoy things like that. So for me, gaming, sports, hanging out with the wife, hanging out with friends, that's pretty much all I need. And obviously my hobby slash work, which is 3D. But it's like you said, I think it's important to unwind. Eventually, it will catch up to you. But this advice I think is the hardest to give for people who are just starting out, especially if they're starting out freelancing or under their own banner. Because man, you need to get the hours in, you need the experience, and you need to learn as you go. Like we all learn as we go, but even more so when you're a beginner in so many ways. And you got to treat your clients right. You don't want to be one of those people that's just like, you know, selfish in that sense. And that sometimes I think at the beginning of your journey does mean you're going to spend a couple of hours, maybe more. But that's I don't have. Maybe there's a better way to do it, but I just think that's typically what happens. It's almost like a rite of passage. But even in that situation, I would say do keep yourself in good spirits, good physical condition.
Also a personal life. I mean, you wouldn't want your significant other to get, tired of waiting for you to show up, or your kids or something. They grow up and then they're out of the house, and if you miss that, there is no going back. So keep your priorities straight still. I mean, if you have to put in the effort, put it. Obviously, we all need to go this route, but keep your priorities straight. And maybe one last question: as being a one-man studio, how do you find clients? So what do you do? Mails, calls, LinkedIn, advertisements? How do you smoke signals? Whatever works.
I just set up the fire on my backyard every day, and that attracts people and mosquitoes.
I knew I should have tried.
I don't have. Well, what I did in the past was I tried coming up with a cool presentation of myself and what I do. And I tried to frame that from a standpoint of what the client needs and what the client not wants to see, but what's important for them to see. They don't need to know if I like my dog and what my dog's name is necessarily, unless I want to be a little more personable, which is good because everyone, like most people appreciate that stuff. But I hope you're getting what I'm saying here. And that was my approach in the past. Have a client focused website. I don't like overly fluffy marketing, so I always try to keep it real. On my website, a lot of the time, I also have this text where I'm just like, if we're not a good fit, my policy is to refer you forward. And not a good fit just means like maybe your project is not something I can service you, where I think I'm confident that I can achieve solid results for you. Maybe it's a budgetary issue. So just have it be focused like that. And obviously the work is the most important part. Publish it everywhere. And I mean, that's what I did in the past. Also, I think an important tip is to find a niche. Niches are cool. I know it seems counterproductive, but everyone keeps saying it. All the business books you'll read recommend niching down. That's what I'm trying to do right now in many ways. So basically, niching down means maybe you, like if we're talking about toon rendering, maybe you're just a person who really likes toon rendering and you want to help architects in that phase of the project, and you become really good at that, right? If that makes you happy and if you can help people like that, then that's an interesting niche. Maybe you're in a niche where you just do, I don't know, glassware renders, and because you do just glassware renders, you ought to probably become really good at it, right? Where there's not a whole lot of alternatives out there. That also focuses your marketing. So that's kind of where I'm moving right now. But in the past, where I got clients was basically what I described. Just try to have a pretty detailed website focused on what the information that might be important to the client. Obviously, try to build a bit of a brand. I'm not that good at it. I'm not spending a lot of time on it myself, but that seems like good advice to me. And stay active. If you enjoy communicating with fellow-minded people, communicate with fellow-minded people. If you don't, then try to find other ways to get your work out. Maybe do blog post tutorials. I don't know, like it's a wild west out there, but there's a lot of things to try out, I think. And it's okay to know that a lot of things won't stick and a lot of things will fail, and that's perfectly fine. You've eliminated things, and you're improving. You're moving on to the next thing, right? So I'm sorry, it's a lot of advice for.
That's what you're here for. We want to hear more advice from you. So yeah, but you can do it. I mean, a lot of artists have their own personal practices. This is where you can try out something new, and then you can start sharing it on social media, or maybe even on work social media like LinkedIn, and see the resonance to this and see how people react to this. And let's say it happens that people are like, oh, you know what, I love this, then double down on it. If nobody is interested, you can still keep doing it on the side as a hobby, but maybe try out something else. But yeah, we want to respect your time, dear Nate. So
Oh, there's just
let's.
sorry,
Oh yeah.
sorry to cut you off. Just maybe one thing that I would add. This is something that a friend of mine told me, and I thought it's a pretty big deal. If maybe if you've ever wanted to hire a contractor for something, whatever it may be, and you probably, it doesn't matter how much money you have, but you're searching for somebody to really, maybe you're building a house and you know nothing about houses. How do you hire the right people? Referrals, or you go to their websites. But now everyone has websites these days. But you're going to notice that ultimately you're going to decide for somebody who kind of speaks your language. They mention some pain points that you're familiar with, and then you opt to go with them, right? So think of it in those terms. So what I wanted to say is, like, imagine you, maybe even if you're a 3D artist, you want to hire somebody that's going to create a website for you. Now, anyone can create a website, anyone that's in the business of creating websites, but you're probably going to pick one of the people because they resonate with you. Now, you might pick them because their website indicates that they're kind of budget conscious, but they also, it will indicate that maybe they know some of your pain points. What are you afraid of? And they address that on the website because they kind of specialize maybe in that a little bit. So now you know there's this common ground, and you're probably going to choose them. Now, I will say this, for bigger, more luxury clients, the reverse is sometimes true. If you go to a freelancer's website or a contractor's website, and you get a feeling that they're very budget focused, you're probably not going to pick them because you don't care about budgets that much. You care about the work getting done. So
Yep.
There's also that aspect to things. But I'm just trying to say it depends on what type of clients you're ready for, what type of clients you want to attract at this current stage of your career, and then making sure that you communicate what the pain points are that you think they're going to be facing, and the pain points that you're going to try to address. Now, don't do fluff marketing. Nobody likes that. But just try to think about the things you're good at, the things you want to be good at, the things you're spending a lot of time on, and putting them forward. And then that sort of perspective is what I wanted to communicate here. Sorry to interrupt you, Theodore. I just figured maybe somebody's going to have use of this.
No, this is a great point. So you recommend finding a niche, finding maybe some type of emphasis to your work, and then making sure that the people who are eventually interested in this type of work that you're offering get what is important and crucial to them, get it immediately visible on your web presence, so that you kind of speak to them like, hey, you want a budget friendly thing, here I am, or you want this, and I have the solutions for you, so to speak. So you got to offer the solutions in some type of specific area.
Yes, so, exactly.
That's really great. Final question: interiors or exteriors are your favorite? So that we answer Kama's question.
Interiors. I just find them more fun to work with, and I'm not that good with exteriors. I don't think I ever have been, because I mostly just did interiors. So hats off to everybody who does exteriors, because oh my goodness, real heroes. I don't know how you do it.
This is the this forever topic that people are always arguing about: are exteriors or interiors more difficult? As somebody who's on the opposite side, who's mostly done exteriors in their life, yes, there are differences, huge differences between those two. Like, exteriors are mostly very elaborate. You need to do so much work. I remember doing one of my very first interiors, and I was, I'm used to modeling for days, and then sending a clay shot to the clients, and then I did my first interior, and I was done like 4 hours later with the clay, with just white balance model, and I couldn't believe how easy it was, because I had 4 walls and 2 windows and a chair which was a ready-made model. But of course, once you get into it, when you really want to become good at it, then you see that the difficulties with interiors, which is like, achieving a good balance, good lighting, making your having good framings, having not an overcrowded but not too empty image. So yeah, it's both have their tricks and difficulties and so on. So I wouldn't say, I always thought that exteriors are more difficult. um, I think they have different challenges to them, but
Yeah.
they're not. The exteriors are more elaborate. They need just more work. Until you build the whole building and the whole surrounding, it takes forever. Just not a quick work. But
Now you know why you don't see a lot of exteriors in Corona tutorials.
yeah,
But I will say this: we are thinking of having an exterior scene for chapter 2 for the academy.
you can gladly use our building that you just saw, the Lightwalls house. By the way, it's free. I mean, it's free for Chaos and for Chaos Campus, so you can do it if it helps you, because it has a very, very nice interior. By the way, okay, I think it's time for us to wrap up today's sessions. Let me just quickly remind everyone about two things that are going to happen, because we may otherwise forget about this. So we have tomorrow, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have a V-Ray webinar. No, not a presentation. This is this one. Let me see where it is. Yeah, here it goes. We have a V-Ray webinar with Jana Markulev showing you how to get started with V-Ray for SketchUp. It starts at 4 p.m. Central European Time, the same time our show started today. There is an invitation in the group. And then on July 7th, we have the third episode of the Portfolio Reviews show with both Pedro Moreira and Pedro More, if I pronounce it correctly, that will be giving feedback to your portfolios. Don't miss out on this. Even if you haven't sent a portfolio over, there is so much precious info and knowledge that we can get from a show like this. So make sure to watch both. And yeah, I think that was it. Thank you very, very much, dear Nejc. It was such a pleasure to have you here. Such a cool, genuine, and pleasant talk. So yeah, it was wonderful to have you as a guest here. Amit says thank you, Theo, thank you, Nejc, and everyone for this wonderful show. It was mind-blowing, good tips and insights from Nejc. Yeah, thank you, two of my idols. Nejc, from Mika.
Thank you so much for having me over. I do keep tabs on Chaos Campus, but I'm rather busy, so I don't partake that much. But I keep tabs, and I'm really I told this pre-show to Tio, is it's a really nice community that's building here, and I think that's really important for everyone. And just keep up the great work, Theodore and everyone else, because this is a product of everyone, if you know what I mean. Like, this community is everyone's community. So thank you all for being so kind. Thank you all for really being nice. It's been nice reading all the comments.
It was a pleasure. Thanks, folks. As usual, it was great hanging out with all of you. Have a great rest of June. Stay safe, be healthy. You know the drill. And I hope to see you again in 2 weeks at the usual place and time. Until then, rock on and keep it real. Much love, my friends. Goodbye.